good? You got yours? You're good? En français ou en anglais, tu veux lire? OK. Oui, on est prêt. Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many people here tonight. I wonder what you're all doing here. Is it because we're talking about the budget? All kidding aside, we'll start with a roll call. All members of council are present and accounted for, and then we'll move to territorial and land acknowledgement and statement and moment of reflection.
We acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Kanyan-Kahakas peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within.
Thank you, Councillor. Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur les principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle. Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Before we start today, I just wanted to acknowledge that we had a great visit this morning from a few local schools, and the artwork that you see here all across this great hall has been provided by Pavillon La Croisée, Rivière Castor, and some of the daycares, and a few students from the high school as well, just to commemorate Remembrance Day, which is upon us tomorrow. So very happy, and this was organized by Le Club Richelieu, and they took the lead for the event that's happening here at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And so very, very excited with this new approach. And so it's great to see all the students here and have a chance to chat about that. So there you go. All right, so we're moving to item number 4, additions, deletions, or amendment. I would like to propose adding 18A, an update on rural intersections. And so anything else to add? Seeing none. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended, and this is moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Lauren. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing and hearing none. We'll move to item 7. Adoption des procès-verbaux, procès-verbal des séances extraordinaires du Conseil, séance budgétaire 2026, le 23, octobre 25 et 24 octobre 2025, et le procès verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil du 27 octobre 2025. So motion to approve, motion d'approuver le procès verbal tel que présenté, and that's moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. Moving to item number 8, presentations. All right, this is the best part of my job. I know I say that every time I get one of these, and so I'm very happy to have one this evening. So good evening, everyone. It is truly my honor, on behalf of Council and the residents of this beautiful municipality, to present the Citizens Recognition Award for Community Service and Volunteerism to Mr. Jack McLaren. Jack is one of those rare individuals whose entire life reflects the very best of community service. Born just south of Russell Road and raised right here in Russell Village, Jack has devoted decades of his life helping others, strengthening the community he loves so much. Jack was nominated for this award by Mr. Dave Dyer. His nomination was further supported by Mr. Julius Tott, past president of the Russell Lions Club, as well as the current executive, a clear reflection of the respect that Jack has earned amongst his peers. Since joining the Russell Lion Club in 1964, Jack has lived the Lions motto, "We serve." He organized the largest softball tournament in Eastern Ontario, led the annual Christmas basket program, supported our food bank, and quietly helped families in need, always with compassion, respect, and without seeking the spotlight. For more than 20 years, Jack has also cared for the Lions Park and maintained the community signs that keep our residents informed, even on those freezing winter mornings when most of us were still nice and warm with our coffees in our homes. Jack, your kindness, humility, and lifelong service have touched countless lives. You have given not only your time, but your heart to this community. And so on behalf of Council, of all our residents, I want to sincerely thank you and congratulate you on this well-deserved recognition. Before I pass it on, I would ask Councillor Lalonde to see if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said it well. Just two quick things I want to mention. One is, when I moved to Russell from Montreal in 1983, I mean, we did enjoy the beautiful scenery on the way in the village and the parks and the trees, but it would be a few years later that I'd get to know Jack, and I think that also said much about the fabric of the community, was meeting some of the volunteers, and Jack was one of the first that I met. And tonight we have with us, through the Lions from years gone by, and I guess it's a testimony to Jack's long-standing service and contribution, the legendary Awful Knaufel, also known as Mike Miller, who's with us tonight, made the long journey out from, I believe it's Manotick now, so wanted to be here to support this recognition award. So thanks, Awful, for coming out. That was awfully kind of you. And Jack, yeah, one of my heroes, taught me a lot about volunteerism, along with Dave Dyer and others, so grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would ask council members and Jack, if you want to come down here, we can all get together for a picture. And then whoever else wants to be in the picture. Is that okay? Yeah, right by the name there. ask if anyone wants to join in a picture all together. Come on up. You want me to? Or not?
Julius had a lot to do with that too, so. Yeah, Jamie did it with Jack's wife.
There's lots of room. Come in front. Come in front. You can stand in front of me. Thank you so much. Congratulations. You don't want to say a few words? You're allowed to.
Oh, it's my turn. Well, when you get my age, making speeches is not your top priority. Anyway, I do want to thank Council, Mayor Mike, the councillors for this award. When you do volunteer work, you know, you don't look for awards. And I'm not the only one, a lot of people don't look for awards. But you know, when they come around, it's all right. The thing with volunteering is I never viewed volunteering as a job. In some cases, I don't know if I would call it fun or not, but you know, you're doing a lot for your community, for maybe your township too, you know. And when you do a lot for a community, you make it a better place in which to live. And there's not much wrong with this place we're living in right now, I'll tell you. It's pretty good. So I want to thank council again. I cherish this. It's I don't know how I got this when I'm only 69, but that's just another miracle we won't talk about. Thank you again very much.
All right, so we have a simple rule here at council. If you stay now, you have to stay for the whole meeting. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, leave whenever you want. We have an exciting meeting tonight, but you can catch it later on YouTube if you want. So you're not forced to stay. Just be comfortable. Whenever you're ready, you can leave. That's fine. Thank you again for all coming. So I'll wait a couple of minutes. That's well done, Councillor. All right, thank you very much. Alors, on va aller à l'item 8B. So, United Counties, Prescott-Russell 10-Year Housing and Homelessness Action Plan, 2024-2034. Presentation for information purposes by Jennifer Lambert, Housing Plan Coordinator, Social Services Department of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell. Good evening. I hope the roads weren't too bad.
No, not too bad.
Okay, excellent. Welcome to council, and the floor is yours.
Merci. Donc, comme mentionné, je viens présenter juste un bref résumé du plan de logement et de l'itinérance 2034. Donc, brièvement, on va voir juste le mandat de ce plan-là, le continuum du logement comme tel, les résultats clés qui sont ressortis des rencontres et des consultations lorsqu'on a travaillé sur ce plan-là, les 8 champs d'action stratégiques clés sur lesquels on va se concentrer dans les prochaines 10 années et les points à retenir à la fin. Donc, on peut sauter la reconnaissance territoriale étant donné qu'elle a déjà été faite. We just wanted to briefly go over the 2011 Housing Services Act, just because since we're a designated service manager, we are responsible for implementing this act and actually having an action plan for housing and homelessness to be able to address the housing needs in our service area. So definitely, like, the counties have this responsibility, but definitely working with all the lower tier municipalities, working together. Okay. Donc, le mandat du plan d'action, c'est vraiment un engagement pour 10 ans d'aller regarder les défis en matière de logement auxquels les citoyens de nos comtés font face quotidiennement. C'est vraiment s'assurer que chaque habitant ait accès à un logement sécuritaire, abordable et durable. D'accord? Ensuite, notre continuum du logement est vraiment important parce que le plan de 10 ans fait vraiment référence à tout le continuum. Donc, on va vraiment aller avoir des stratégies, des actions, autant au niveau de l'itinérance, les abris d'urgence, le logement de transition ou avec services de soutien, les logements communautaires ou sociaux, le logement abordable et le logement au niveau du marché. Donc, on a des stratégies à tous les niveaux qui est différent du plan de logement qu'on avait auparavant. Donc, ça va être vraiment notre feuille de route pour le prochain 10 ans. So key findings following consultations and discussions while doing this plan. So obviously urgent need for any type of housing, high demand for supportive housing, really specialized supportive housing, inadequate emergency shelter. We don't necessarily have a specific shelter. We also don't have transitional housing per se in Prescott-Russell. Disparities in housing needs across municipalities. So, for example, we know that in Oxbury, there's a lot more people, living in homeless. They are homeless versus, let's say, here in Russell, where we're focusing a lot more on affordable housing, affordable housing on the market. So, but we know in every municipality as we're working on this whole continuum. We need enhanced collaboration and resource allocation, growing population and increased pressure on housing resources. And this is going to keep on, continuing, so we need to look at that. Economic development and housing affordability. Barriers to accessing affordable housing. So, for example, having your first payment or first and last, credit checks. Senior-facing housing insecurity, and actionable steps and accountability that we have to really focus on. So these were the key findings. So now we're looking at the 8 key strategic actions. So les 8 piliers, c'est vraiment les services centrés sur la personne en situation d'itinérance, communément appelés les le wraparound services. Ensuite, 2, expand transitional and supportive housing. 3, assurer des loyers abordables. 4, développer du logement abordable sur le marché. 5, aider les gens à maintenir leur logement. 6, ça va être vraiment aider les gens à acheter une première propriété. 7, ça va être de tirer parti des partenariats puis en développer de nouveaux. Et 8, se tenir responsable. Donc, être transparent et se tenir responsable. Donc, ça, c'est nos 8 piliers. À travers ces piliers-là, moi, je vais brièvement vous donner une petite définition de c'est quoi, qu'est-ce qu'on envisage, quelques petits défis ou plus gros défis, c'est certain, quelques orientations futures qu'on va avoir à travers ces stratégies-là. C'est un bref résumé, là, donc on va pouvoir définitivement dans le futur aller plus en détail ensemble, là, en travaillant ensemble. Donc, je les ai groupés par deux. Donc, le premier, ça va être l'approche centrée sur la personne et le logement de transition et de support. Donc, l'approche centrée sur la personne, c'est vraiment une approche globale, c'est personnalisé, c'est vraiment adapté aux circonstances de la personne, à ses besoins uniques. C'est flexible, donc ça répond à ses besoins, c'est pas nécessairement à s'adapter à des programmes ou à des structures déjà existantes, des critères d'inclusion, d'exclusion là, pour les différents programmes. C'est une approche collaborante, donc c'est avec l'individu, sa famille, ses amis, les services. C'est axé sur les forces et non pas juste sur les défis. Donc, on se concentre beaucoup sur les forces et c'est à long terme, donc plusieurs mois, des fois même plusieurs années là, à supporter la personne. Ensuite, au niveau d'élargir les options pour le logement de transition avec les services de soutien, évidemment, on cherche à accroître la disponibilité de ces logements-là et l'accessibilité de ces logements-là. Et on veut vraiment que les gens aient un environnement inclusif, solidaire, qui offre vraiment les besoins, les services qu'ils ont besoin pour s'épanouir. Et puis en particulier pour les personnes âgées et celles confrontées là, avec des défis physiques et au niveau de la santé mentale. Donc, quelques défis pour ces deux piliers. Donc, évidemment, current challenges, so prevalence in certain areas, there's specific needs, like I was saying earlier about Oxbury compared to Russell, for example. Specialized services housing, like I was saying, we don't have specialized, really supportive and transitional housing in Prescott-Russell. Long wait times for these services, coordination between services sometimes is a challenge, so let's say between a shelter and a residence, or really make sure that it's a coordinated transition for the person. And then policy changes, so for example, asset limits changing, so less people have access to some subsidies or programs. A few future directions that we want. Definitely, we want to prioritize that wraparound approach with clients with people dealing with homelessness. We want to expand the number of emergency beds and have transitional housing, reevaluate policies needed for housing assistance, making sure they're accessible to everyone, strengthen community efforts, improve coordination between different housing services, and collaborate with experienced developers from other jurisdictions. You're going to hear me say often collaboration, partnerships. Definitely we need that collective work to be able to work on that plan. Ensuite, les deux prochains piliers, assurer des loyers abordables dans l'ensemble des comtés unis. Ici, on veut encore augmenter la disponibilité et l'accessibilité de ces loyers-là. On veut mettre l'accent sur une diversité de projets pour être capable de répondre aux différents besoins et aux différentes ressources financières là, de chacun des résidents. Créer des logements abordables sur le marché. Encore là, on le sait que avoir accès à s'acheter une propriété, ça devient de plus en plus difficile. Donc, on veut vraiment favoriser des options de logement là, qui sont diversifiées pour répondre aux besoins de tout le monde. Quelques défis. Donc, évidemment, l'inventaire est insuffisant, les listes d'attente y allongent, les besoins diffèrent selon les régions. Encore les obstacles financiers pour plusieurs. Environnement et l'énergie, donc plus de développeurs sont vraiment plus voulants et conscients de ça. Donc pour nous, c'est vraiment d'être capable de savoir qu'est-ce qu'il y a comme subvention ou programme qui peut les aider, les supporter. Donc pour nous, c'est de se mettre à jour à ce niveau-là. Les contraintes des politiques et encore le besoin de collaborer davantage. Quelques orientations futures pour ces deux piliers, planifier une diversité d'options de logement, encourager et maintenir les partenariats comme par exemple Habitat for Humanity, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire, comment on peut travailler avec eux, donc ça c'est un exemple parmi d'autres. Des stratégies spécifiques aux municipalités, comment remédier à leurs besoins. Intégrer des logements abordables avec les logements du marché, donc vraiment d'être capable d'avoir un certain pourcentage là, dans les nouveaux développements. Revoir puis modifier les programmes d'aide financière, puis essayer de trouver des nouvelles mesures, des nouveaux incitatifs là, à tous les différents piliers là, gouvernementaux ou autres. 5, so helping people stay in their homes. So we know that it's already difficult to find and for some people keep and maintain their homes. So it's really to limit these barriers and help people maintain long-term stability, housing, and resilience for all our residents in Prescott-Russell. 6 is help people buy their first home. So really, we want to make sure people have access to financing programs that would facilitate that acquisition. So a few challenges for those two key strategies: communication. So making sure that we keep communicating, that we keep these follow-ups, that we sometimes, we know we could start something, whoops, down the road, we haven't talked for a little while, it takes long. So communicating between all instances, developers, private partners, new partnerships, and targeted outreach efforts in each region. And some of the future directions is awareness of current and new programs as they emerge. So to stay on top of that, collaborate with organization offering support to help residents maintain housing or prepare for acquisition of a property, and continuous communication with all levels of government to foster opportunities for funding. So we'll be working on that. The last 2 pillars, leveraging and developing partnerships. So create new innovative housing solution opportunities through collaboration with key partners, and really recognizing the strength of various partners to make sure that we have a comprehensive suite of quality housing services. The last pillar is keeping ourselves accountable. So really, regular monitoring and accountability measures will be put in place to ensure progress and effectiveness of key actions for each targets. And by regularly reviewing local needs, changing demographics and market dynamics, the United Counties of Prescott-Russell will be able to tailor their projects to be able to address the needs of the different lower tier municipalities. So quelques défis pour ces 2 derniers piliers. Donc, information, dans le fond, par rapport à tous les angles. Donc, pouvoir partager, échanger, utiliser l'information efficacement, les données qui sont là, donc pour pouvoir vraiment avoir toute l'information nécessaire pour faire avancer les projets plus rapidement. Le support financier, puis vraiment aller aborder tous les enjeux d'abordabilité, là, donc le taux de chômage, les familles avec les faibles revenus, donc d'aborder ces quelques défis-là. Les orientations futures, établir évidemment des stratégies alignées avec le plan, toujours garder ça à jour, avoir un cadre de responsabilité efficace qui répond aux besoins du public, être transparent avec le public aussi, faire des mises à jour continues par rapport à nos initiatives et le plan, et renforcer les partenariats évidemment là, existants et nouveaux qu'on pourrait avoir. Donc, pour la dernière, voyons, j'ai juste slide, désolé, for the last slide. So, key points to remember. So really, the housing continuum presents challenges at every level, like you already know. This plan outlines concrete measures to support changes across all these levels. We need a collaborative effort, ongoing communication, and regular monitoring of progress and transparency regarding this to keep working on this great plan. Any questions?
Merci.
I know that was a brief resume.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Lambert. Before I turn over the floor to council, I would maybe, without putting anyone on the spot here, Monsieur Bourgon, Monsieur Godin, when we look at this plan, how do we, I know ROP addresses some of these, how can we concretely, I don't know if that's the right word, move forward on this from our perspective on a collaborative piece where we can see measurable results, down the road when we review this next time again? Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. I think it's about partnership. Like you said, we have to keep working together. We do have the OP, and we have also our affordable housing action plan and different local reports with recommendations that we're working on. But I think it's to keep working with our partners and see how we can help them achieve their objectives. I don't know if any of my colleagues has anything else to add.
Did you have a comment? Go ahead.
monsieur.
Oui.
Premièrement, merci M. Tarnowski, membre du conseil, de nous avoir reçus, présenter le plan que vous avez adopté au conseil des comtés. On apprécie la visite, puis le partenariat qui commence avec les municipalités locales. Et félicitations pour d'avoir déjà un plan en place pour la municipalité locale. Et oui, en travaillant ensemble, on va pouvoir commencer à mettre un inventaire des terrains qui sont disponibles, un inventaire ou aussi mesurer quelles sont les unités qui ont été abordables, qui ont été construites. Je ne sais pas s'il y a déjà des rapports, des permis de construction qui sont émis avec la SCHL qui peuvent être aussi partagés avec les comtés, puis qu'on puisse commencer à garder des données, du data, puis voir qu'est-ce qui est fait. Puis à la fin de l'année, on a un rapport annuel à présenter au conseil, puis voir le progrès. Puis on va pouvoir se mettre des cibles et puis après ça, suivre nos cibles ou travailler ensemble pour avoir de plus en plus de logements abordables sur le territoire. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseiller Lalonde.
Thank you. It's nice to see UCPR here and Alain Lasselle in particular. We're on together now on a brand new subcommittee, Housing and Homelessness Committee, and some good work and energy there. I know it was mentioned earlier, the suggestion that maybe we didn't have any transitional housing yet, but of course we have some groundbreaking ceremony last week, so it is accurate to say that we don't have it just yet, but we will have it shortly, and that's thanks to the work of our staff and with your help as well. It's a very exciting. I saw in the last slide that orange building is the transitional housing building, and we're going to have an orange building next year to, and just maybe to make the point, that's through Maison Interlude. This is a very significant achievement for this council and the previous council and the help of administration. I'm very proud to be on council at a time that this is happening and to know that now included in that transitional housing for women escaping intimate partner violence, that there'll be a number of apartments available for adults with developmental disabilities as well, something we've never had available in this township before. So I think we are on the right track. And I just had one question. As far as the UCPR goes, and other than the work that you do to help through CMHC, and could we expect that there might actually be financial support for first-time home buyers at the county's level, or is that not imaginable?
We are looking into seeing what others are doing right now. So far, it's been only provincial funding that allows us to the OFI program, OFI COCHI programs, to do a first home buyer down payment assistance. But I know that some municipalities in Ontario have done their own, because this funding accumulates as properties sell, this funding comes back. So we have a revolving fund with the province right now working for the first home buyer. So it's working well, and I think it's feasible and possible to maybe look into doing it our own, having our own. So it's something we'd be looking at.
Thank you.
Merci. Autres commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseillère Deakin?
Merci, Monsieur Lauzon, Madame Lambert. Thanks so much for coming all this way and presenting on this strategy. We took a road trip out to, where was it? L'Orignal, all those months ago to contribute, and it's nice to see this report back happening and the next steps starting to take shape. Some of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the report, there are 4 strategies that really called out to me for Russell Township based on what we had learned from the affordable housing and the report that came out of that. Ensuring affordable rents here, developing affordable market housing, helping people stay in their homes, and keeping ourselves accountable. I think that's for everybody that's involved and that hopes to ensure that people in our community have a safe, stable place to live. we are in a unique position here in Russell Township in many ways. One of them is that we don't have any currently public or not-for-profit housing other than for seniors in our community. And I just want to say that I hope that this project, this presentation is just the start of a conversation and further updates on our unique situation here in Russell and how we as a local council can be activating better outcomes for local folks, especially with regard to purpose-built rental housing and deeply affordable public and nonprofit housing. So thank you again for coming, for your very informative presentation, and for all your hard work. Merci.
Merci, Conseillère Deakin. Any other comments? Monsieur Lasselle, Madame Lambert, merci beaucoup pour votre temps et votre voyagement pour venir nous voir jusqu'ici, et puis au plaisir de se revoir très bientôt. Merci. Alors, on continue. On va au numéro 9, délégation, pétition. On n'en a pas. Numéro 10, point par consentement. All items listed under the consent items will be enacted by one motion. A majority vote is required for the adoption of the consent items. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless a request is made prior to the time council votes on the motion that a content item is to be separated from the motion. The separated item shall then be considered immediately after. So a motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. And this is moved by Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you, Council. Moving to item 11. Non, qu'est-ce qui manque? On va directement à 19, c'est ça? So note, item 19, public consultation will be addressed at this time before 11A. So on to number 19. All right, so 19A, development charges, background study, statutory public meeting. This meeting is being addressed now. Statutory public meeting required by Section 12 of the Development Charges Act concerning development charges, background and study bylaw. Monsieur Dagenet.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire et chers membres du Conseil. This evening's meeting includes the statutory public meeting required under the Development Charge Act. The purpose of this meeting is to present the draft development charge background study and the proposed development charge bylaw for the Township of Russell. As Council is aware, this study is a key financial planning tool that helps ensure the cost of growth, such as roads, parks, water and wastewater system, fire service, and recreation facilities, are shared fairly between new developments and existing taxpayers. At this time, I'd like to invite Madame Julia Siraki, Senior Consultant with Emson Consulting, to present at the highlights of the draft study and outline the next step before the final bylaw is brought forward for Council approval.
Merci, Monsieur Dagenet. Mr. Raki, the floor is yours. Welcome to Council.
Thanks very much for having me. It's nice to be here in person this time and to meet you all. So just moving on to the next slide. This is a statutory public meeting required by the DC Act. It's an opportunity to make representations on the 2025 DC study and draft bylaw and rates. The DC background study was made publicly available on October 9th and is available on the township's website. The draft bylaw was also made publicly available on October 27th. So today we'll discuss the background and legislative updates, some interesting things happening with the province as well. I'll also run through the key DC calculation inputs, including the development forecast as well as the DC capital programs, the calculated DC rates, some rate comparisons with sort of neighboring and nearby municipalities, and then finally next steps in the process. So just moving on, what are development charges? So development charges are imposed on development to pay for growth-related capital costs. They pay for new infrastructure and facilities to maintain service levels, and the principle is that growth pays for growth so that those costs are not borne fully by the existing tax and rate payers. So in Russell Township, your current DC bylaw came into force in November of 2021. So it's not expiring just yet, but since that time, the township has prepared a new water and wastewater master plan, as well as a new transportation master plan. So that's really made this an opportune time to update the DC bylaw to align with the township's current long-term capital plans. Your DC bylaw recovers costs for a range of services that are listed here. So we have library, parks and rec, childcare, fire, police, bylaw enforcement, development-related studies related to each of these services. Services related to a highway, which includes public works and roads and related services, and then water and wastewater services as well. So the DC legislation, there's been a number of changes in recent years as the provincial government focuses on housing affordability and building more homes. A number of housing bills have been released in the last 5 or 6 years or so, which have resulted in changes and new restrictions related to the DC Act. Some of the more recent changes over the last few years have included some new statutory exemptions and discounts, including exemptions for certain forms of residential intensifications or additional dwelling units, nonprofit housing, as well as affordable housing, as well as discounts for purpose-built rental units. So more recently, Bill 17 was released this spring and has resulted in a number of changes to the DC Act. So the changes that have come into force so far are, first off, an exemption for long-term care homes. There's also an allowance for amendments to a DC bylaw that result in reduced DC rates without going through the full legislated process of undergoing a DC background study and public meeting and all of that. If you're reducing the rates, you can just pass the bylaw amendment through council. There's also a new deferral of residential DCs until occupancy. So that's something that came into force a week ago on November 3rd for non-rental residential development. And there's also a revised rule on the DC freeze in payments between planning application and payment, just to ensure that where municipalities charge interest during that period, that the DCs payable at the time that they're payable are not higher than the DCs that are actually in force at that time. And then there's also Bill 60, which was just released last month and passed its first reading on October 23rd. So this bill has a number of proposed changes to the DC Act. First off, introducing a new class of services for land, so it would kind of separate the land costs from the other DC calculations, merging water and wastewater services for DC credits, requiring municipalities to establish local service policies within 18 months of the legislation being passed, so that's something that you'll need to do in the future. And then requirements to describe benefit to existing methodology within the DC background study. And then there's also additional rules around annual reporting. So I do want to note here that there is a chance that this legislation moves forward before your targeted bylaw passage date of December 8th. And in that case, we would likely need some additional time to adjust the DC background study and the rate calculations in order to bring those new rules, bring the township in with those new rules, particularly the new rules around land. So it's not much of a problem because your bylaw is not expiring at this time, so it's just something that we're kind of aware of, and if it does go forward in the next couple of weeks, that might throw a little bit of a wrench in this process. I don't expect that to have a big impact on the calculated rates, but it's more of a logistical process. So just moving on, I'll just get into the DC study process as per the Act. So this flow chart kind of illustrates that. We start out by preparing a development forecast for the township, so a forecast of new housing units, population, employment, and non-residential space. And that forecast helps to inform the township's growth-related capital needs. So we work with staff to determine the types of DC eligible projects that would be needed over the 10 or 20-year planning horizon. 10 years for general services, 21 years actually for your engineered services. At the same time, we undertake an exercise to determine the township's 15-year historical service level, so that's a requirement of the Act for the general services as well as roads and related services, and that sets a cap on the amount that can be funded through DCs, and we call that the DC funding envelope. And then from there, we determine the capital needs that are eligible to be funded from DCs. So we have our gross capital costs. We do a series of net downs of those capital costs, accounting for any grants or other contributions, other municipal shares, any non-growth related shares. So if there's a replacement share or a share that we deem to be a benefit to existing development, we deduct those shares from the calculation, as well as any positive DC reserve fund balances, and what we call post-period amounts, so any shares that are deemed to be related to development occurring after the planning period that we're using. Those all get deducted from the DC calculation. So that leaves us with our costs that are eligible for DC recovery, and we essentially allocate those costs to the residential sector and the non-residential sector in order to calculate a charge per dwelling unit type and per square meter of non-residential GFA. So just at a really high level, moving on to our development forecast. So our forecast was based on the 2022 UCPR growth management study, but with some adjustments for some higher growth seen in recent years and alignment with the township's new water and wastewater master plan. We want to make sure that that nexus is really strong between your capital plans and the growth that we're forecasting. A 10-year planning horizon from 2026 to 2035 is used for general services, where a longer horizon to 2046 is used for roads, water, and wastewater in alignment with the master plans. So by 2035, it's anticipated that the township will see a growth of about 2,700 units. That's shown in the green line there. Over the longer planning horizon to 2046, close to 4,800 units are expected to be added, to a total of about 13,200 units by 2046. Population is expected to grow from about 22,700 currently to 34,000 over the sort of longer term 20-year horizon. And then employment, which is just employment associated with a fixed place of work in the township. It's forecast to grow from about 5,200 jobs to almost 7,900 jobs by 2046. And then just moving on to some of an overview of our growth-related capital program. So just a few notes to start off. It's been informed by the township's capital budgets. The previous 2021 DC background study was also reviewed. We had really close consultations with staff throughout the process. And of course, the master plans and any other documentation that you had on hand, staff reports, and things like that. As I mentioned, the DC eligible costs are adjusted down to account for anything that's not directly DC eligible. So if we move on to the next slide, just gives us an overview of the general services capital program. So these are our soft services, sort of everything from library, parks, daycare, public works. We're looking at a 10-year planning horizon, as I mentioned. The total gross capital costs amount to about $128 million. There's no grants or other contributions identified for these services specifically. There's the fourth column here is the available DC reserves, but it's also any amounts that have been funded through DCs in prior years. So that really relates to the rec complex that's currently under construction. So there was a share of DCs that were already allocated to that prior to this year. So if we add in the positive reserve fund balances that you have in your DC reserve accounts, we have about $14 million in what we're calling sort of available reserves or prior funding. Another $30 million in the last column here represents costs above the funding envelopes that I mentioned, and that's deemed to be related to development occurring after the 10-year planning horizon, so development after 2035, and that's also removed from the calculation. So once we make those deductions, we're left with a total of just under 39 million for the general services. That's brought forward to the DC calculation. And the greatest portion of that is related to the rec complex, of course, the big project there. So that's a big piece of this. And then just moving on to the engineered services, so roads, water, wastewater. Again, the planning period here is 2026 to 2046, consistent with the master plans. The total gross costs amount to about $192 million, with the largest share related to the planned new wastewater treatment plant. So of the 192 million, 43 million will be funded through grants or subsidies or UCPR shares of projects or neighboring municipalities. So a bit of a mix there. Benefit to existing or replacement shares amount to a total of 29 million. And again, that's mostly related to the wastewater plant. We have $776,000 in positive reserve balance related to the water DC reserve. So you see that there. 24 million is attributed to post-period development. So that amount is related to the wastewater plant again. And the additional capacity is going to be a bit oversized. So there's going to be additional capacity beyond the 2046 planning horizon, looking at the forecasts that we have. And then the remaining 96 million is carried forward to the DC calculation. So with that, I'll move on to the township-wide DC calculation. So we've calculated DCs based on the process that I've run over. Residential rates are based on 4 unit types consistent with your current practices. So we have single and semi-detached units, rows and other multiples, large apartments, so that's 2 bedrooms or more, and your smaller apartments, which are bachelor or 1-bedroom apartments. And non-residential rates are calculated on a uniform per square meter floor area basis. So just moving on to the calculated rates. So this shows our residential rates specifically for a fully serviced unit. So the water and wastewater portions of the charge are only charged to units that receive that servicing. So that's important to note. So a fully serviced single and semi-detached unit would pay close to $37,000. That amount is lower for other unit types, and that's just based on occupancy factors, so typical people per unit in each unit type. There's a correlation there with the demand for municipal services. You'll see that the bulk of the charge is related to parks and recreation as well as water and wastewater. Again, if a unit's not serviced, it's not paying those water and wastewater portions of the charges, so the charge is cut by kind of almost half. And then on the next slide, we just have a comparison of the current rates that are in force with our draft calculated rates. And when we compare the calculated rates to the currently enforced rates, we're looking at an increase of just under $5,500 per unit, or a 17% increase. And most of that increase is related to Parks and Rec, fire, and water services, just because those capital programs do have more in them than other services. And then just moving on, we have, just for context, a comparison of DCs that are currently in force, just on the next slide here. In sort of your neighboring, nearby comparable municipalities. And you'll see we have the current rates kind of in the lighter red shade and the calculated rates in the deeper red shade here. So you'll see that it doesn't really change your position that much in the graph here. The most comparable rates can be found in Kingston, Carleton Place. You'll see that Ottawa's DCs are significantly higher, especially in the urban areas outside of the Greenbelt. Clarence Rockland is also in the process of moving forward with a rate increase, so I'm showing their proposed rates here. They're still under discussions about whether they're going to phase in the rates, but they do have a plan to implement the rates at minimum by July 2026. And now for the non-residential rates. So we're calculating the non-residential DC at about $146 per square meter of non-residential development. You'll see here that it's much more heavily weighted towards the water and wastewater services, and that's because we don't charge Parks and Rec, library, and daycare to non-residential development. Those services are considered to be fully related to population growth and residential development. And again, water and wastewater services, it's not going to be charged for development that doesn't receive those services, which is actually quite a large portion in Russell Township. You don't currently have plans to service your industrial lands. So a lot of your employment or non-residential development will pay the lower charge without the water and wastewater DCs. And then just moving on to the comparison with the currently enforced rates. So much higher increase here of about 81%, and there is a reason for that. It's because we're not accounting for the industrial lands that won't be serviced, so that increase is really related to the water and wastewater servicing. And it's also because last time you did your DC study, there were plans to service the industrial lands. So there's kind of a direct relationship here with floor space per worker. And really, the fully serviced charge is only going to be charged on sort of your, what we call population-related or more commercial types of non-residential growth, which has a lower floor space per worker. So essentially, it's more dense with employment, which means that, more servicing is required. So big increase there, but it's really just because of the type of the development that it's being charged on. And then, interestingly, with when we compare those rates to neighboring municipalities, Russell remains in a pretty similar position. You're still lower than quite a few municipalities. Many municipalities have commercial DC rates that are quite significantly higher. So Ottawa's are almost 3 times higher. Mississippi Mills is almost double. Kingston, Clarence, Rockland, and Carleton's commercial DCs are also quite a bit higher than our calculated rates. So on the next slide, just a quick update on the draft DC bylaw. It's been updated to align with the new legislation, and that is available online. It includes the fully calculated rates. The plan is to have it come into effect on January 1st, 2026. The rates would be indexed semi-annually beginning on July 1st of 2026. And we're proposing a continued use of the township-wide approach. And then in terms of next steps, so as I mentioned, we released the DC background study, we released the bylaw, we've done some consultation with the development industry. Today is our statutory public meeting. Bylaw passage targeted for December 8th, so it needs to be at least 60 days following release of the study. There is a 40-day appeal period, and then the bylaw to come into effect on January 1st. So that's all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very informative. Ms. Araki, I just had a couple of questions, one for our staff from my end, then I'll turn it over to council. So the potential impact with Bill 60 would set us back how long in terms of adoption? Like our current DCs are up when?
So your current bylaw actually doesn't expire until next November.
Okay.
And not even that, but you could actually extend it further than that because now the life of a bylaw is 10 years where it used to be 5 years. So it's no real concern there. I know there's a desire to have the new rates come into force on January 1st. That might be impacted depending on how, I'm not sure what the council calendar is. I would expect that we would just need a couple more weeks just to make sure everything is in line with the new legislation if that was the case.
So with new legislation coming in, sorry to interrupt, so with new legislation coming in, doesn't impact the the timeline for feedback? Like it would just get updated based on legislation, not requiring a full reset of the feedback period, the 30-day feedback period, does it?
Yeah, no, so we're in the 60-day period
Okay.
between release of the background study and bylaw passage. So it is up to council whether you want to call another public meeting. If you deem it unnecessary to call another public meeting, we don't need to have one. I don't think an additional public meeting will be necessary in my opinion, because I am expecting the impact to be pretty minimal in terms of the overall rate calculation. The result would be the calculated rate coming down by a small percentage.
Okay,
So-
thank you very much. And so my question to staff would be that with the likely oncoming DC deferred to occupancy, DC paying to deferred to occupancy timeline, have we modeled impacts on cash flow? Is that something that we are planning on doing, just to be prepared and understanding the impact it may or will likely have on us? Mr. Desjardins?
Yes, we've been working on this for the last month. So we do have reserves, so that's gonna help, but we need to be prepared if there's I guess we won't have revenues for a period between 6 to 12 months. So we have done the analysis, and with our situation right now, we're okay. But yeah, we're monitoring that pretty closely.
Okay, and if I understand correctly, the process, the way it works, once we're in the flow of it, then it should just be business as usual once we go through those. In terms of an accounting process, the revenues for those DCs account for as of occupancy when that changes, or still the way it is now? Like we would change our accounting approach, correct?
Yes.
Okay, merci. Members of council. Councilor Lauren?
Understanding that was it 25%, 29% of the draft calculated maximum allowable residential rates account for Parks and Recreation. We're in the middle of a Parks and Recreation master plan, and some additional growth-related facilities or whatnot may be in need that comes out of that study. How would we be able to account for that in the DC charge if the DC has already been passed?
Ms. Saraki?
Yes, thanks. So through the mayor, maybe unfortunately, your Parks and Rec charge is sort of maxed out because of the funding envelope caps that I mentioned. So you're limited by the assets that you've had in place historically and the sort of per capita service level on a historical basis. So we can't exceed that moving forward. So your Parks and Rec capital program is already exceeds that funding envelope. So the result of that is that we've pushed some of it beyond, it appears beyond the 2035 planning horizon in the DC study. So that essentially means that your rates are not structured to recover all of those costs under this bylaw, but you can recover those costs through future bylaws. So in the future, if we update the study 5 years from now, we'll be looking at, particularly the rec center, which is of course, a big project that's meant to serve development for sort of many years to come. So something like that, you're likely going to be recovering for it over the course of a few bylaws. So we look at that, and then other projects as well kind of fall into that as well. So it's just a bit of an accounting exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I'm just want to go back to slide 6. We're talking about Bill 60 again. You say it would require municipalities to establish local service policies. What types of policies are you speaking about?
So So it's a relatively common thing. So a local service policy deals with the types of infrastructure that developers are required to provide as part of their development, as part of a subdivision agreement sort of thing. So sort of local on-site infrastructure or connecting in to the township-wide infrastructure. So you don't currently have one in place. It's something that would be quite simple to move ahead with, just kind of looking at examples from the other municipalities, talking to staff about what the process typically is when it comes to those subdivision agreements as well. And it just ensures that that there's a clear delineation between what we're considering local services or services that benefit sort of one particular development or a small group of developments versus sort of this township-wide infrastructure that's sort of planned for and implemented on a municipal-wide basis.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Armstrong?
Will there be a phase-in of the requirement for such policies, or will we be rushing if Bill 60 is passed soon? Will we be rushing for early next year or whatever to have such bylaws in place?
Ms. Saraki?
Yeah, no, you have 18 months is what they're proposing from the time that the legislation comes into force, so.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Deakin?
Thank you for your presentation. I just had a question on the October 13th virtual developer consultation. I'm not sure if that was more informational or if it was actually an engagement opportunity for developers. I'd like to know if anything came out of that session that council should be made aware of.
Thank you, Councillor Deakin. Ms. Saraki?
Yep, so through the mayor, it was intended to be an opportunity for a technical discussion. At that time, the materials were all available in full. We had decent attendance, I think. No questions though, so hopefully that means that everything was straightforward and, you know, easily digestible. But yeah, nothing really to report there.
Thank you. Follow-up?
Yeah, just one more question. It's a very specific one on page 33 of the study where it was talking about net operational costs. I believe that section was meant to inform council that, of course, this covers capital, this study and this DC charges are about capital costs versus operational, and so that we have a good understanding of what the operational increases would look like. But I just was curious, I wanted to make sure that I understand the definition in this context of net operational costs. Is that operational costs excluding revenues from user fees or rates, or is it actually meant as sort of gross operational costs, but you're referring to it as net in the report?
Ms. Saraki?
Okay, I might have to refer back to the study for that. I don't have it directly in front of me, but yes, it should be just the additional. So we calculate an estimate of what we call sort of capital induced operating costs that would arise from the new infrastructure. So if there would be new staffing and maintenance kind of needs associated with the infrastructure. So yeah, that is meant to be just costs. And then it's viewed sort of in the context of you're growing by X amount, and of course you're going to have additional tax revenue to support that, but that tax revenue has not been deducted from those totals. So.
Councillor Deakin?
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand that it's net new operating costs versus net operating costs minus, which would factor in projected revenues. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, members of council. Ms. Saraki, thank you so much. So the public portion, the consultation portion essentially begins after tonight for 30 days, correct?
December 8th
December 8th,
bylaw
yeah.
passage, yeah.
Yeah.
So anytime.
So members of the public that have comments or feedback are directed to where to make those comments. That's a question, Monsieur Godin, your team. Where do people make comments? I just watched this riveting presentation from home, and I have some questions. Where do I go?
There's a communication online, and the email address is there. It's
Everything's
at-
there?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
you.
Appreciate your time. All right. Okay, moving forward to item 11, reports from departments and council committees. So the council received report CSAS FS 2025-23 dated November 10th, 2025, and hold the statutory public meeting as required under the Development Charges Act 1997 to receive public input on the draft and development charges background study and proposed DC bylaw study, and direct staff of the township and the township consultant, Hemson Consulting Limited, to review and incorporate any feedback received prior to presenting the final study and bylaw for council adoption. Any additional comments from staff on this? No? Any additional questions or comments from members of council on this item? No? Thank you so much. And now we're moving to item B. That council receives report CSASFS 2025-22 dated November 10th, 2025, and approve the 2026 budget as proposed in the summary report Schedule A, which includes a 3.94% tax increase, and that council improve the proposed 2026 user fees and charges bylaw as modified in Schedule E, and that council approve the 2026 community grants special event program listing as presented in Schedule F, committee's expenses program in Schedule G, and the new organizational chart in Schedule H, and that council approve the proposed bylaw to amend the Township of Russell salary structure for 2026, and that council approve the proposed bylaw to establish the remuneration of council for the Township of Russell, and that council approve the proposed bylaw to establish the employee per diem and travel expenses reimbursement. So before we pass it to staff, I just want to once again thank both staff and council for the thoughtful planning that went into this process. We had some great open discussions, some good collaboration, both in the preparation and during our 2 days of deliberations and discussions on this. There was some changes presented here today that stem from those. I believe there was some great dialogue. Some difficult decisions had to be made, but in the end, I think what we have in front of us is a reasonable budget that continues to position our township among one of the most financially responsible municipalities in our region. And I say that in having a feel for where other municipalities are going right now. Protecting our services today, preparing wisely for the future, and doing so with respect for financial pressures for our residents. So, Monsieur Dagenet, 3.94% increase, and 2.64 of that 3.94 is related to the OPP, which we don't have a final bill yet, but we are given assumptions to use to prepare, correct?
It's 1.3. 1.3 is related to the increase of
1.3.
the OPP
Okay, I'm
services.
not sure why I had one. Okay. OK. Alors, la parole est à vous.
Donc, adoption du budget 2026. Ce rapport marque l'aboutissement de plusieurs mois de travail, de consultation et de collaboration à travers l'ensemble de l'organisation. J'aimerais d'abord prendre un moment pour remercier sincèrement l'équipe des finances pour tout le travail qu'elle a accompli afin de produire ce budget équilibré et rigoureux. Leur professionnalisme, leur souci du détail et leur engagement à soutenir la prise de décision du Conseil a été remarquable tout au long du processus. Je tiens également à remercier tous les départements de la municipalité pour leurs efforts, leur collaboration et leurs ouvertures tout au long de l'exercice budgétaire. Le budget 2026 reflète vraiment un travail d'équipe où chaque direction a contribué à trouver des solutions équilibrées pour répondre aux besoins croissants de la communauté, tout en maintenant une gestion financière responsable. Enfin, je souhaite remercier le Conseil pour le temps, la rigueur et les réflexions investies dans ce processus. Votre participation active et vos orientations claires ont permis de concilier discipline financière et maintien de la qualité des services offerts aux citoyens. En somme, Ce budget représente le fruit d'un véritable partenariat entre le conseil, l'administration, l'ensemble des départements et les résidents. Il traduit notre engagement collectif envers la durabilité financière, la qualité des services et la planification à long terme des infrastructures. Merci.
Merci, M. Dagenet. Avant que je la passe au reste du conseil, j'avais juste une question sur les sacrifices qu'on a faits, peut-être c'est pas le bon mot, là, mais sur les changements qu'on a faits depuis nos discussions. J'ai remarqué qu'on a enlevé le web redesign de 85 000. Est-ce que ça veut dire qu'on ne fait pas le web redesign? J'ai-tu mal lu ça?
Oui, il est encore là.
Il est encore là, OK. Excusez-moi, ma note est mal écrite. OK, parfait. Au niveau des changements, est-ce qu'on a réduit à l'extérieur de ce qu'on avait proposé? Il n'y a pas eu d'autres changements?
Non.
OK, merci. Alors, je passe la table au reste du conseil. Conseiller Armstrong.
Yeah, just a few comments to make, mostly for the public, to let them know how we actually reduced some of our budget and things that concern me in the very long term. We used some of our reserves to reduce some of our next year's increase. But as I mentioned in the budget session, we don't have a plan to rebuild those reserves. So those actual costs are eventually going to come back. Maybe not all at once, but they will come back to the public, the ratepayers, and we're going to have to pay some of those costs as we don't have reserves in future years. And the other thing, of course, is we've pushed back some hiring or modified the hiring, especially in the fire department, to significantly reduce the operating costs that are incurred with our increased needs, and traffic accidents in the last 24 hours have been a significant issue with that. But the fact is that those costs are going to come back to the public, and we can't expect future councils to have the flexibility that we've had this year to keep a control on increases in tax rates. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want to clarify one point. So the fire department, we did remove one of the position. We didn't postpone it. It was removed and to be reintroduced at next year's council. Because there is also a strategy in some instances where you just move a hiring of a position to later in the year, so you reduce some of the costs for that year, but in the end, the next year, you're still there. So that was a position that was completely removed. In terms of the reserves that are being used, are you alluding to some of the user fees that we're talking about?
Not so much user fees, but if we go back through our discussion, there were several instances when Mr. Dagenet and Mr. Godin mentioned that they were we had the option to fund it from a reserve.
I understand.
And we've taken that option now, but it did not include a plan to rebuild that reserve. So we've taken the flexibility away from future councils. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, so just to clarify that when we're talking about reserves, just to clarify that we have put in a very robust AMP, asset management plan, which accumulates reserves to make sure that we don't have a gap in the reserves which currently exists. And so we initially, Monsieur Dagenet, corrigez-moi s'il vous plaît si j'ai tort, but originally your plan came with a 10-year plan to meet that gap in our asset management policy. In other words, to have enough money to replace aging infrastructure as it ages out. And so within 10 years, we will have that. We have robust asset management reserves as it stands. And correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Armstrong, the reserves you're referring to are operational reserves? Thank you. And so on the operational reserves, typically we've never had a strategy to have operational reserves. Am I correct in that assumption? It's usually when we have within that department some overages, or if we have surpluses at the end of the year, we allocate those to future needs in terms of reserves. So there's never been a policy to have reserves in certain departments. Is that correct? And Monsieur Godin, feel free to jump in.
Well, we have many reserves, and some do have policies, some don't. But in general, an operation reserve is there to help if for a certain project or a certain department, you need there's a shortfall in the operation budget, then we can go in the reserve and get that shortfall. And if there's an over or a surplus, then that year you put that surplus back in the reserve. So it's there so we can control our fee or
Just for stability.
taxation. Stability. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, just on that point, I think there was one reserve that we looked at, and that was the OPP reserve, where there's $120,000 in there. We were looking at offsetting this one, $60,000 this year, $60,000 next year, but understanding that by doing that, because there was no additional funds flowing into that we would need to play catch-up down the road, but we didn't do that in this budget, correct?
Monsieur
Correct.
Dagenet?
And I don't remember any other instances where we did do that in this budget, unless I'm missing something.
Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, again, in that budget, we're playing in 15, 20 different reserves, so, in general, no. The budget does not use reserve to compensate on a recurring operation cost.
Exactly.
So we were using reserves a lot when it's a one-time, like next year we have this project or we have this cost that is not gonna be a recurring cost, so we'll be using a reserve. Like for the instance of the OPP reserve, we're using 6,026 for the parent.
Block Parent
Block
Initiative,
sorry,
yeah.
So that's a one-time, so we're using 6,000.
That's correct. And so, again, and it's important to understand that using reserves for operational items is just moving the problem down the road, because eventually it has to be paid for. And so I think generally speaking, we try to avoid that as much as possible. Okay, other questions or comments? Conseillère Deakin.
Appreciate that discussion. Just referring to the communication plan that came in the report, the final budget brief isn't mentioned there, and I do feel that's a key communication piece for residents to get a good understanding and snapshot of their budget for 2026. So just wondering when that can be. I hope that we are publishing a final brief and that is part of the communication plan, and when might that be available, if so?
Thank you, Councillor. Great question. Monsieur Dagenet?
Yes, there's gonna be a communication that's gonna come out. It would be tomorrow, but it'll be on Wednesday because it's a statutory holiday tomorrow. We're planning on, resident will have access to that communication on Wednesday, and the budget brief will be, we're planning on finishing it probably this Friday or Monday. Then we'll translate it in French. So we're planning, it should be available online for the 21st. That's what we're aiming.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dagenet. Je demanderais juste que le communiqué qui va se faire publiquement mercredi, que l'on indique le timeline du full budget release, du full brief. OK. Merci. Autre question, membre du Conseil? Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Monsieur Maire. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank our Director of Corporate Services, Monsieur Dagenet, for his leadership throughout this whole process. This is Monsieur Dagenet's second budget cycle as a treasurer, and he's already brought a lot of innovative adjustments to the process. He's developed some sound financial strategies to help the township navigate many fiscal challenges. And I just want to publicly thank and congratulate him on a job well done.
Here, here. Thank you so much, Monsieur Desgenais. Very much appreciated from this side of the table as well, and everybody on your team. Thank you. Okay, moving forward. Item number C. So bylaw to exempt certain lands from part lot control, PD 2025, refer to number 16 bylaw, property known as 349, 351, 353, and 355 Voyageurs, Place d'Embrun. Quelque chose à rajouter, M. Bourgon? Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Merci. On va à l'item D. Demande de modification au règlement de zonage, rapport PD 2025, propriété connue comme étant le 4513 chemin Grégoire à Marionville, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport PD 2025-41 daté du 10 novembre 2025 et approuve la modification au règlement de zonage visant à modifier le zonage du terrain en question d'une zone R1-9 à une zone R1 pour inclure les dispositions suivantes. 1. Façade minimale de l'eau de 20 mètres. Et 2. Le garage existant peut être utilisé comme stockage commercial. Quelque chose à rajouter, M. Bourgon? Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Thank you. Moving to item E. That Council receives report PD 2025-42 dated November 10th, 2025 and approve the zoning bylaw amendment to bylaw 2018-94 for the subject property for the following. From Agricultural 2, Mineral Aggregate Reserve, A2-AR Zone to Industrial Park 2, MP2 Zone to permit the proposed warehouse use. Quelque chose à rajouter, M. Bourgon? Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Councillor Armstrong.
I'm getting back into my significant groundwater recharge area and a little bit of confusion here. The part of this property, I believe, is part of the significant groundwater recharge area. And in our official plan, we have some restrictions on use of that property. Yet our MP2 industrial park zone lists permitted uses, and some of those permitted uses actually are ones that are against the official plan. I would have thought we would have had a zonage here, MP2 with an exception, that would eliminate the permitted uses or at least, you know, restrict some of the things on it before that.
Thank you, Councillor. Monsieur Bourgon, commentaire?
Yeah, an exemption that could have been used, but in this case, it's really to permit a warehouse, and that's what's being proposed and planned for that specific land.
So just to clarify, Monsieur Bourgon, what you're saying is that because the it is a warehouse, it then meets the requirement without the exceptions, that we do not need to mention those exceptions?
Yeah, and it's not something that's, because of the groundwater restriction, the warehouse is still permitted.
It's permitted.
Yeah.
Follow-up, Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I'm just building a warehouse, which is essentially an empty building. I have no problem with that. It's what one might put in it, because that's not restricted here. We talk about warehouse here, but within the MP2 zone, but with no restrictions. And the other thing is, what would happen in the future? Because if, so for example, somebody wanted to put in an automobile gas bar or something like that, either as an addition or as a replacement, no zoning requirement would be, or zoning change would be required.
Monsieur Bourgon, how would we address that?
We are currently conducting an hydrology study as well. That's a requirement or recommendation from the groundwater recharge study. So that's one thing that's going to be done as well. We can add specification on the site plan in that regards, because especially that block of land already had most of it zone industrial. So now like it's, like we're on that fence in between our old zoning and the new one. So under the site plan review, specification can be added as well.
Okay. Under the current process, and just for my understanding, we're currently getting our OP adopted. Once the OP is adopted, we are reviewing our zoning bylaws, correct? To align with our new OP, correct?
That's correct.
And when we do that, will we address this situation for the longer term?
Yes, so we will have the zone, like the phases or area, the 1, 2, 3, from setback from residential homes, and as well to address or to include those limitation and type of uses.
The type of uses. So what you're saying, if I understand correctly, and either Councillor Armstrong or yourself, please correct me, what you're saying right now is that doing it at the site plan is a way to in this kind of in the between period to be able to address that concern and still ensure that it doesn't change. Is that correct?
And that's correct, for that specific lot.
Yeah.
And especially that half of the property was already zoned industrial under
I
our
understand.
current zoning bylaw.
Okay. Councillor Armstrong, anything to add on that?
I'm just waiting for site plan now.
Okay.
And
But is
it'll come
that a
back
fair
again.
compromise in terms of, given
I-
the timeline that's required between the OP and the bylaws
Yeah.
changing?
I know the OP approval is the timing driver for everything else
Yeah.
here. And, but you may have more idea than me, but maybe not, when we'll get an OP
Approval?
approved. But it still worries me in the overall.
That's a fair comment, Councillor. In terms of the timing on the OP approval, ballpark, Monsieur Bourgon?
It's hard to say at this point. We're still waiting for feedback from the counties
Yeah,
on the matter. We had discussion with the county staff about a month ago, so we're waiting something or at least an update shortly.
yeah. It's my understanding that it'll likely be early in the new year by the time it comes back. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for the comments, Councillor. All right. Any other comments on this item? No, thank you. On est rendu à l'item F, c'est bien ça? Oui? Oui, OK, on est d'accord. All right, that council receive report EcoDev 2025-05 dated November 10th, 2025, and that council proceed with the sale of land identified in the report representing approximately 1 acre at $1 per acre to the Kin Club of Russell and adopt a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the document for the sale of land, and that the council authorize to sign the acknowledgement and direction legal document, see Appendix 1, as the legal description of the property is outdated and must be corrected at the time of the registrations. Nice to see this project moving forward. I think it's a great community initiative, and I'm very happy to see it move forward. Monsieur Bourgon, question, quelque chose à rajouter là-dessus? Oh, Monsieur Dagenet, excusez-moi. Nothing to add? Okay, thank you. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Armstrong.
Again, it's zoning. The land is currently zoned, I believe, A2, agricultural 2. And that has some restrictions on it. But what I'm worried about is, again, future. We'll have to look at the zoning of that piece of land, again, to ensure that it remains as a warehouse storage, not for profit, as opposed to being sold sometime in the future, and then have some uses on it that are undesirable.
I think duly noted. I think for the near future, it'll be the Kin Club, and then it comes back to the municipality, correct, in the agreement. So, Monsieur Bourgon, quelque chose à rajouter?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. To address Councillor Armstrong's question about the zoning, both parties are aware of the situation right now, so we'll be taking the appropriate steps to do the adjustment in the near future.
Excellent. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bourgon. Anything else to add on this, members of council? All right, excellent. On tombe à l'item G, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport IS 2025-02 daté du 10 novembre 2025 et, de 1, appuie la création du nouveau poste et, de 2, autorise la directrice générale de la planification et des services d'infrastructure à signer l'entente avec la conservation de la Nation du Sud. Moi, je ne sais pas si c'était la directrice d'infrastructure, mais Monsieur Bourgon, pardon.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, nous avons présentement déjà une entente avec la conservation pour effectuer ces travaux-là. Donc, il veut juste apporter un amendement à cette entente, créer un poste qui ferait l'enforcement de toutes les zones au travers, je crois que c'est 18 municipalités là, de toute la Raisin Watershed.
Fantastic. Monsieur Bourgon, je sais pas, it's a bit early to ask you about this, but it's my understanding that there's some restructuring coming with the CAs, with the conservation authorities in 2026. Will this have an impact at all? And I don't mean to put you on the spot if you're not sure of this.
I was made aware of the discussion about that topic, but I don't know. I cannot answer that question at this point.
Okay. So there is a discussion of amalgamation of CAs in the area, so. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that.
I
Monsieur
guess
Bourgon?
what I can add, it's the agreement currently, it already include 2 CAs, so I'm not sure if it would fall into those lines, but we're already working with the Raisin Conservation and South Nation.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other questions on this item, members of council? Seeing none, thank you. All right, moving to item H. That council receive report ISPW 2025-24 dated November 10th, 2025, and adopts the bylaw Part 1 of Plan 50R 11803 as part of the public highway being Emma Street, and adopts the bylaw Part 8 of Plan 50R 11646 as part of the public highway being Robot Street, and that the bylaw be registered on title. Anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon? Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? No? All right, moving to item I. This is a newer item that was just added, I believe, today. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport verbal et donne instruction à poursuivre le processus d'approvisionnement pour ISWAT 2025, tour d'eau en brun, rapport verbal. Alors, Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. So as council are aware, in the week of the October 27th, the utility department or the utility division did an inspection of the Embrun water tower. So to conduct or to perform that condition assessment, we had to empty the tank in order to survey the interior. Following the visual inspection, it was determined that some deficiencies had to be fixed before putting the tower back in service. Because of the extent of the work required, the tower will be out of service until next spring. Because of the extent of the work, we're asking council to fast track the procurement process. So we're already working on bid forms in order to seek 2 companies that can achieve that type of work, to hire them or to award the contract at the December 8th council meeting in order to start working with the contractor, mobilize over the winter, do the removal and the replacement, and to address or to correct all the deficiencies that were found in the interior of the water tank.
Merci, Monsieur Bourgon. I think and this is terrible news, but timing-wise, I think through the winter of not having the water tower in use is probably the best time of a bad time to not have it, correct?
It's never a good time, but from all season, it's better that way. We are working closely with the fire department during those times as well. By kicking off the procurement and award the contract as quick as we can, we're just trying to maximize or reduce any possible delay until the work are completed.
So it's fair to assume that there is no way that we can refill it and wait and redo that?
No, for what was discovered during the inspection,
It needs to be
it
addressed.
needs to be rectified before
Yeah.
we put the tower back in service.
So in terms of our residents' impact, right now, we will continue with the no washing your cars out in the winter, which is okay. But in terms of other aspects for daily lives for our residents, any impact?
For the regular consumption, no, but we are, like you mentioned, we are maintaining the exterior use of water, so the exterior ban,
Limiting.
until the water tower is back online.
And from our fire department's perspective, we are safe. I know we have agreements with outlying communities, should we need support with water.
Well, in terms of water, the water reservoir does have the capacity to push or to supply water to Emblem Village. So I know,
Okay.
talking with my team, we'll try to conduct tests with fire hydrants and to see to do a stress test on our system. But that's all things that will need to be coordinating between the water operators and the fire department.
If I can be so bold as to ask, M. Bourgon, si ça serait possible d'avoir un rapport au conseil après ces tests-là, juste pour s'assurer that we have peace of mind in terms of that safety for our residents, in terms of the fire, from the water for the fire department.
Oui, effectivement. Puis à ce moment-ci, il y a encore certaines variables ou certaines choses qu'on est encore en train de valider. Donc, j'espère être en mesure, quand on revient pour donner le contrat le 8 décembre, de pouvoir donner un peu plus d'informations au conseil là, sur
D'accord.
les choses qui ont été déterminées.
OK, merci. Question, commentaire, membre du conseil. Councillor Lauren.
You say you're going out to 2 companies. Are there more than 2 companies that could do the work if it went out to bid?
M. Bourgon.
Talking with our engineers, it's really limited for the type of companies, and especially that have the forces to be available to us quickly. So we can inquire. We're just trying to fast track the tender process in order to be back into a word contract in a month time.
So what part of the purchasing policy are you asking to be exempted from?
M. Bourgon.
Through Mr. Mayor, at this tonight it was just more of information to council. It's not a sole source since we'll be seeking at least 2 pricing. But we know it's really limited on types of businesses that could be available to assist us in that process.
So a
Councillor.
report will come back to us on the 8th outlining all of the information?
M.
Or
Bourgon.
is something going to come to us at the next meeting?
Through Mr. Mayor, my plan was to come back to council with both prices on December 8th regarding the award of the contract.
Okay. Follow up, Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, sorry. I get the urgency. I really do. I'm just trying to understand of where we're at that point in time. What would be, Mr. Godin, what would we be asked to exempt from, just so I have a better understanding of what decision I have to make that night based on the information that's going to be provided.
M. Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So there are a few clauses not clauses, but sections in our procurement policy where, depending on the pricing, different methods should be used for procurement. So there definitely will be, unless the bid comes in very low, but I expect that the price of this project will be high enough where normally we would be required to have an open tender with, for this type of project. So we will be coming back in that December 8th meeting with those details as far as what exemptions are required specifically. And they are based on the urgency of it. And like Mr. Bourgon said, we don't have all the answers tonight because we just learned this at the end of last week, and we felt we had to come to council right away in order to maximize the odds of having that tower back online in the spring. But to answer your question, that's what the exemption that would be requested would be related to not having gone open tender for all to bid and to follow the engineer's recommendations of the known suppliers that could probably help us quickly.
Merci, M. Godin. Follow up?
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, I understand the urgency. We want to get it done and whatnot. Essentially, though, come the 8th, you're essentially tying council's hands, right? Like you're gonna have got proposals. You're gonna have numbers in a report. You would be then prejudicing those two firms if council decided to say, you know what, no, I want you to follow the policy, right? So now it's going to be 2-3 weeks later when that's probably something we should have done tonight is requesting the exemption process so that you didn't get to that point if council decided not to support that type of an exemption from the process. So wouldn't it have been better off to do that tonight and ask for the type of exemption?
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. And yes, Councillor Lauren, your point is well taken. But I think that is kind of when we're saying in the resolution that we're looking for direction, that's specifically what it is for. We didn't have the time to prepare that full report, and that's why we have a verbal tonight, just given the timeline of when this was announced and when we understood the extent of what needed to happen. So having a verbal report and seeking direction to proceed with that procurement process in the way that we're explaining it tonight, which to be fully transparent, is going to require an exemption to the policy to be able to adopt.
Members of council, any other questions or comments on this? Councillor Deacon.
Just adding to the mayor's comment around peace of mind. The deficiencies that were noted, I'm assuming that they had no impact on quality of water, concerns about the type of water that residents were consuming or using prior to the deficiencies being found? That
Monsieur,
this was a routine check that found, like, that it's a positive that we have that information that we do now to avoid any issues down the road?
thank you. Monsieur Bourgon?
Part of the question that, yes, it was part of just a routine. We did survey all towers earlier this year. We felt like based on something else about the structure, that we surveyed the interior of the tower and we found that deficiency. So at this point, we don't believe there was any risk to the resident, but now that those deficiencies are known, it needs to be fixed before putting the tower back on service.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no other questions on that, Councillor Lauren?
So, seeing as how is there a resolution to this in tonight's resolutions as well that you're looking for? Because you mentioned something about direction, and I'm just asking that because I see that there's been a closed session that was added as well, which talks to the water tower, so I'm wondering if any decision is going to be made after that closed session.
Monsieur Bourgon?
That's correct. There's other information on the topic to share with council, but it would be separate from what we're
From
having
this
the
direction,
discussion
yeah.
right now.
Has no impact on this direction and having to fix the problem. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. And just your question about the resolution, so it is in the agenda in item I, that you receive the verbal report and give direction to proceed with the procurement process. So that's how it's worded in the agenda, the amended agenda that was added today. So that's where we're getting direction to proceed.
Thank you.
Can we pull this item, please?
Okay, pull item I, s'il vous plaît, Maryse. Merci. On continue. On est rendu à l'item J. The council receives report PR 2025-12 dated November 10th, 2025 and approve. 1, the amount was used towards the operations of the purchase of equipment for the Barracuda's swim team and the Russell Centennial Pool and its different swimming programs. We received the report, discretionary funding from the United Counties of Prescott Russell. Questions, comments, anything to add? This is standard, Madame Guittard. Every year we go through this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. That is a recurring report that we have to send to counties every year.
Okay, fantastic. Questions, comments, members of council? No, thank you. On tombe à l'item K. That council receives the chart dated October 27th, 2025 with the proposed amendments to Council Procedural Bylaw 2021-127 and authorize the clerk to bring forward the amending bylaw for consideration at the next regular council meeting on November 24th. So today is an opportunity to discuss the proposed changes that were brought by staff on the table that you would have seen that came with the information. You have all the details of the changes. So we're not making any decisions today, but we're kind of giving directions on coming back with a bylaw. I just want to be clear with council that I'm very comfortable, certainly, if this takes one additional council meeting. And so if we have good discussions today, and if there's still some more time needed before the bylaw comes back, it's fine. There is no pending urgent deadline for this. Mr. Godin, is that correct?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. That is correct, yes.
Okay, and so before we go into the discussions, so there's really 4 amendments that are being proposed by staff. Anything from council meeting frequency, public question period, expansion of consent items, and agenda publication timeline. And so, anything to add, Mr. Godin? I know that Madame Camille Laflamme is not there. Marie, je ne veux pas te mettre sur le hot seat. Est-ce que toi, tu as quelque chose à rajouter avant? Non? Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we're proposing some changes to the procedural bylaw, specifically regarding the frequency and the structure of council meetings. This is a result of many discussions, both internally and with councils on different topics. A result of our public engagement study that was done and presented to council a few months back. And essentially what's being proposed, just to summarize at high level, is to have 1 meeting per month instead of 2, which would open up a bit more time to manage the agenda differently. We're proposing some a different structure for question period, rather than having it at the end of council meetings. Suggesting to open it up to have an online or a system to be able to receive questions in advance and to be able to have some answers prepared and having that in a package for councils to consider before having discussions and back and forth and making decisions. There's also, by having less meetings, we would probably, this isn't in the procedural bylaw, but it is in the business case that's presented, but introduce different models of engagement, such as town halls or open houses, just for just looking at different ways that other municipalities are implementing their public engagement policies, different things that we can add as another way to reach out to more members of the public and make our public engagement more accessible. So what we're proposing at the end of the day is changes that we feel will increase the efficiency and of our council meeting process and the quality of our reports, improve public engagement, and improve transparency. So with that, you've seen the business case and the statistics, but we're happy to answer any questions and help dialogue.
Merci. And also, additionally, I just, as a comment to make, these changes, whatever direction that council decides to go in, there's a couple of things to point out. Some of these changes are contingent on other changes being accepted, for one. And 2, nothing stops council from, if we do approve some of these, we could say we wanted to enact that for the next council as a means to kind of maybe deter any comments that may seem that we're doing this for self-serving reasons. So that's another option in terms of adding to the discussion. I'm completely open on this, and so I'll open the floor to council. Councillor Deakin, and then we'll go to council.
I have a couple of questions to start. The 10.4, 10.4.1, delivery of agenda and public availability. Just to clarify, it says 2 weeks, but if the agenda is released and made publicly available on the Wednesday, that would be either 1.5 weeks prior or 2.5 weeks prior to the meeting. So for clarification, it would be 1.5 weeks prior to the meeting?
That's a great question. Monsieur Godin, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, that's correct. So it wouldn't be the previous week, but it would be the week before that. So you're right, it's about a week and a half.
And that would be stipulated, like if we need to clarify that today, that if that is in the procedural bylaw, that we say perhaps just the number of days in advance.
Yeah, Monsieur Godin, any issues with putting in the number of days?
No issues at all. We could, unless the clerk's office tells me we can, but I think we can make those changes.
Madame Roy,
Yeah.
c'est logique. And it's always calendar days when there's holidays and stuff like that. There's potential impact there, so that would have to be looked at. Mr. Godin?
Yeah, I would probably suggest just changing the wording. Currently, it says on the Wednesday preceding a regular council, preceding a regularly scheduled council meeting. I'm not sure exactly the wording, but we could keep the Wednesday, but we could say,
The week.
yeah, I understand how reading 2 weeks preceding a regularly council meeting would confuse things, but we could probably just clarify that to make sure it's crystal clear.
Thank you.
Follow-up?
There are parts of this, I'll get into this later, but there are parts of this, these amendments that I am supportive of. And that we're beginning to see some progress in terms of tactics for public engagement, and I think that's really positive, and I commend the work that's been put in. Back to February 2024, council deferred looking at the question period question until such time as a public engagement policy was brought forward. And I don't think that's happened yet. I could be wrong, but I don't remember seeing the policy. The report certainly did come. And then we were to see, council is to see an action plan and a public engagement policy and toolkit in late 2025. So I'm just curious to get started on that aspect of the conversation. What is prompting administration to come with the question period amendment tonight, and through this notice?
Thank you, Councillor. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. So, there are different projects ongoing from the department. One being just the review of the procedural bylaw. Another one being from a different department, well, the same department but different division from communications, being the public engagement policy. I think the timing was around. It was now for the clerk's office to bring the procedural bylaw. So even though the policy itself hasn't been brought forward for the public engagement, this is one of the changes or one of the topics that is discussed in there that would impact this procedure here. So we've put it here. It does take a few meetings for this to take effect. As far as the specific timing for the public engagement policy, I might let Monsieur Dagenet give you an update on that.
Monsieur Dagenet?
Yes, it'll be at the meeting in December, so December 8th.
Okay.
We'll have the toolkit, the action plan, and the policy.
OK. Alors, ce qu'on confirme, c'est que the question period piece is addressed in that policy, like in the sense of how do we engage and we ensure that that residents have opportunity to ask those questions, and that's being drawn into this procedure, correct? Fait qu'on l'a adressé dans la politique, puis ce qui en ressort, c'est les changements que vous êtes en train de nous offrir, c'est ça?
Mais dans l'étude, on avait discuté, la question elle a été discutée, puis il y avait des solutions qui ont été offertes. Puis on s'est dit que ça serait dans le procedure bylaw qui serait la meilleure place pour apporter ces solutions-là. Fait que si on l'a présentement, on le présente dans le procedure bylaw, mais dans la politique de public engagement, il va y avoir d'autres choses. On ne va pas parler de la question period.
Merci. Follow-up, Councillor Deacon?
Yeah, I can just give my thoughts. So 4.3, 1 meeting per month, I am interested in exploring that. In my view, nothing is final, and I do see a lot of benefits as well as considerations. And I believe that it's good enough to try. Acknowledging that this would alleviate administrative burden, focus the efforts on delivering on the strategic plan. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted with the public.
Sorry, if I could just ask for order, please.
Alleviating administrative burden and focusing efforts on delivering on the strategic plan. That is really enticing to me. I see as a counselor every council cycle how many amendments come, how many republications have to happen, even on a closer look on the committees where we're more involved in drafting and supporting the creation of those agendas. That is quite the process, and it strikes me as very inefficient to be doing that every 2 weeks. I also, in terms of engaging with the public as a counselor, I love being able to speak to members of the public on issues that are on the agenda before the meeting. It's a very, very tight turnaround between when I get through the agenda package myself and have the opportunity to meaningfully engage with the people that I'm meant to be representing at this table. So putting a week and a half, as I understand it, between when the agenda is published and when it's actually being discussed gives me more time to flag what are the key issues here, who do I know has a special interest in this, how can I be engaging with residents on those issues. It gives me more time to do that good work. So I'm like I said, with the 1 meeting per month, I do believe that that's an idea that's good enough to try, and nothing is forever. Perhaps if we were to look at doing this in the new year, that could be, we could ask for data to come back in the next term of council so that they can, as a council, decide if that would be something that they would want to continue. So I do appreciate the mayor's comments about options to implement this right away, options to implement any changes with the next council, just putting that one forward as well. On the question period on the meeting of the day, I have 3 things. I do believe that it should be maintained for now, given that we don't have a policy and action plan and a toolkit in front of us. I do want to say that there are a couple of proposals around the question period and public engagement that seem like a bit of a non sequitur to me, or not exactly related. I really appreciate administration starting to bring forward the idea of town halls, bring forward the idea of a virtual option to pose questions to council, perhaps even an online form, not only to receive questions, but also to facilitate residents' ability to directly engage with council, which would normally happen through clerks and correspondence. I'm not sure if all residents really understand that. If they were to land at our website and have a form where they could submit a question in advance or a comment for council to receive through correspondence, I see those as both really positive steps, and I don't understand how removing the question period is related to the administration's ability to move forward with what I would see as an enhancement in public engagement. And those are the only, I'll leave those 2 points for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, great thoughts, Councillor. Councillor Lauren.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the comments that Councillor Deacon made as well. For me, I have 2 things. So 10.3.11, question period, meeting of the day. I've been a very staunch proponent of keeping the question period over my 19 years here. It started as open question period. It got reduced to question period on meeting of the day. And now for it to become a question in advance, to me, I can't support that. I still think that there should be the ability for somebody sitting in the stands who reacting to questions, comments, reports, verbal information from staff or council during the meeting, and then be able to stand up and ask a question related to that is still a very important part of transparency and open engagement with the public. So removing any type of that question period in a council meeting, I can't support. In terms of 4.3, the amount of times of a council meeting, 1 versus 2 currently, Again, I've been here for long enough to know that putting everything on one meeting wouldn't accomplish what I think you're trying to accomplish. I think we still need to maintain our 2 meetings a month, and I wouldn't support the removal of one of the meetings throughout the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly appreciate the comments of both Councillor Deakin and Councillor Laurent. But I note that, you know, in terms of public engagement, the township strives to be a bold leader. And being a bold leader often means you're unique. And looking at some of the trends that other municipalities are following along is more like a great leap forward, an historical one, but a great leap forward versus something that is actually useful for the township. The Municipal Act says that the inhabitants of a municipality are incorporated. And we're not a business corporation, not a not-for-profit corporation, physical corporation. Everybody who's an inhabitant of the township, touch them, you're touching the township. And because of that, they can come here in this meeting, and I think that we as a council, collectively, should be facing the corporation, the members of this corporation, on a regular basis. And today, that is through questions on the meeting of the day. I think that many people come regularly. Others only come once or twice, and maybe in all of the time they live in the township, they only come once. But that's an important time when they come to the township if we, as a full council, listen to them. And I think we have a duty to actually listen to those residents when they show up to do that. It's incredibly important for them. We shouldn't distance ourselves from the public. If anything I would change there, I would change it from just questions in the meeting of the day to comments and questions on the meeting of the day. Because it's not a game show here. I think people should actually clearly and concisely, not like me rambling on, state what they think on the issue. So, if anything, I would look to amending that to add comments, not just questions. As for the future, the longer-term future, I would not be adverse to any additional measures that requires us, as a council as a whole, to face the public. And I would accept any open houses or whatever where we're sitting here facing that public along the way. As for the frequency of meetings, I noticed that in 2025, 5 times we had meetings go over 2.5 hours, and in 2024, 7 times. My question would be, if we combined the times of those 2 meetings together, we will be pushing midnight on a few occasions. Okay? And if there's only 12 meetings, we'd be pushing them 3 or 4 times a year. That, I think towards the end of those meetings, we're not going to be as productive as we should be. So I would follow Councillor Laurent's advice here and keep the 2 meetings a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lalonde, anything to add?
Ouais, je ne vais pas répéter ce qui a été dit, je l'espère en tout cas, mais je crois que la période de questions, je sais qu'il y a 1 an à peu près, on avait des défis à tenir les résidents à porter un focus sur le pourquoi de leur temps au podium pour pouvoir poser des questions. Et il y a eu des moments, évidemment, mouvementés. Je pense qu'on a fait beaucoup de progrès depuis ce temps. J'appuie les commentaires un peu du conseiller Armstrong, que c'est du moment que ça se déroule bien, comme a été le cas depuis peut-être 1 an ou en tout cas les 10 derniers mois, je pense que c'est un élément très intéressant, important pour qu'on puisse avoir un dynamique live avec nos résidents, nos shareholders. Alors moi, j'appuierais plutôt qu'on la garde et comme conseillère des Canadiens à propos de l'autre option d'envoyer des questions en avance, je pense que c'est un élément séparé, peut-être quand même qui vient renforcer, mais quand même un élément séparé. Moi, je tiendrais à garder le dynamisme d'un échange en personne avec nos résidents. Sur la question de la fréquence de réunion, je trouve la proposition très intéressante. Il ne faut pas oublier que, oui, ça se peut que les réunions, sûrement, vont être un petit peu plus longues. Mais en même temps, l'administration, le staff qui se voit peu après terminer la réunion, commencer déjà à se préparer pour le subséquent, il faut l'apprécier, ça, à savoir si leur temps est bien servi, à être surtout en mode de préparation de réunion. Alors encore, comme la conseillère Deacon a dit, ça serait un expériment qui vaudrait la peine d'essayer. Peut-être, moi je dirais peut-être pas tout de suite, peut-être, nous, notre mandat qu'on a été donné comme conseiller, conseillère, on est en train de le vivre, il reste encore 1 an ou un petit peu moins d'1 an. Et moi, je m'étais inscrit dans ce sens pour des réunions qui devaient se tenir 2 fois par mois. Alors, moi, je suis prêt à continuer le protocole que j'avais accepté lors de mon arrivée sur le conseil. Peut-être, dans ce sens-là, ça serait une option pour le prochain conseil à considérer pour peut-être penser de l'adopter ou pas. Ou peut-être en janvier le tenter un petit peu. Je serais peut-être ouvert à cette idée-là, mais j'ai tendance à vouloir appuyer l'idée que notre terme, qui a été initié sur la base de 2 réunions par mois, que peut-être on le voit jusqu'à la fin du terme du Conseil. Alors, ça serait les 2 points que j'aimerais faire là-dessus. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, conseiller. Monsieur Godin, Madame Roy, I think council's kind of pronounced itself, generally speaking. I purposely didn't want to put in my 2 cents at first. I know I had brought up the question period question ways back, and I would agree with Councillor Lalonde's analysis of it in terms of how it's moved. I think the follow-up piece that we do now as part of the agenda item is a good one. It allows residents to see the answers to those questions. One of the aspects that I did like in the proposal is that we as councillors could have those questions and answers to those questions as part of our preparation for the meeting, because we would have that timeline in front. And so that would not happen if we remain with the frequency that we have. But regardless of that, I would agree with, and I think Councillor Armstrong presented it very nicely, we are the community, and we should provide the community that opportunity, continue to provide the community with that opportunity to ask those questions that come off the cuff that maybe you didn't think of at the time when you looked at the agenda, questions that we don't think of sometimes when we look at the agenda. And so I'm comfortable at leaving that question period. In terms of the frequency piece, I'm uncomfortable reducing that frequency piece, and I know that many other municipalities are doing it. I wouldn't mind looking at maybe piloting something to see if it is more effective or not. But I like how Councillor Lalonde kind of put it, is that we were elected within certain parameters, and that we as a council, certainly this sitting council, should finish in that, and perhaps the new council can consider a pilot project to look at the viability of that. And I understand that this requires, has a major impact, or has an impact, continual impact on staff in terms of the prep time and so on. And I realize that, but I think it's important for our residents to have that confidence that we are continuously evaluating and looking out for their best interest. And so that 2 meetings per month, and with the exceptions of January and July and August, I think provides certainly me some comfort on that. So I don't know what else there is to add, Monsieur Godin. Is there any further clarification you need as we move forward on this?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. Not really. I think, I mean, I don't know if there's consensus, but what I'm hearing is on the question period, there's consensus. There's no appetite to remove that, which is fine. On the frequency of the meetings, that's where there's maybe mixed visions. And just to clarify, I guess to add context from based on some of the comments that were made, and from Councillor Deacon specifically, which around this having those strategic plan items moving forward, that's definitely on my end. One of the things that we're not bringing this to reduce volume of work, right? We're bringing this to improve quality of work and efficiency. There are a lot of strategic plan items which I would have liked to see come to council earlier, for example, which in the current model is maybe a bit difficult sometimes. That's not to say that we can't continue with this model. It's just I'm just throwing that out there just to maybe to echo what Councillor Deacon said. But definitely, if council want to remain status quo, that's also that's definitely on the table. We can always bring this back for a pilot project with a new term of council if it's something that they would be interested in observing or trying out. Entirely up to council. So, if what I'm hearing now is that there's no interest to move forward with any of these.
I think that's a fair statement, Councillor Deacon.
Just for my benefit, I'd like to understand Councillor Laurent's point when he raised about he is the longest sitting member of council and has long-term understanding of, and so that was one of his major reasons for not going down to once per month. My understanding, and this is well before my time, is that council does come much more prepared, and we're not, for example, reading through line by line every report in the meetings as I think perhaps may have happened in the past. I'm talking decades. But I'd just love to hear more from Councillor Laurent about what he meant by that and what he's seen over the years. And perhaps if he has a view, especially as this seems to be going towards maintaining twice a month, I'm always solutions oriented. What can we be doing to support administration to be more efficient in preparing for meetings? Civic Web is not my friend, and I doubt that it's a good friend to many of the staff who are clicking around all day in that. But yeah, just would love to hear more of what Councillor Laurent meant by that.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. Councillor Laurent?
Yeah, there's been many iterations of how we conduct meetings. When I first started, they were 7 o'clock meetings on the first and third Monday of the month, and we were here many times well past midnight, even with 2 meetings. And then we went from a process of 2 regular council meetings to a committee of the whole, which is more of an administrative meeting, and 1 council meeting. But what tended to happen a lot of times, and those were done at different times, so I think the original plan was to move the committee of the whole to 2 o'clock. Then I think we changed it to 4:30 to help for a certain member of council that had a full-time job compared to the other members of council that didn't, me. So we got it moved to 4:30, and we did that for committee of the whole, and 6 o'clock for the regular council meeting. But what tended to happen during those times is a lot of exemptions to the committee of the whole, because you weren't passing any resolutions or bylaws at the committee of the whole. And then we started passing a bunch of resolutions and bylaws at the committee of the whole. So ultimately, as the years went off, we decided to go back to 2 regular council meetings. And for me, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't continue with 2 council meetings. I would be very concerned that we would be here extremely late on many of those meetings because you're packing in a bunch of reports that you haven't had for a month. Look at the January meetings and August meetings. They are always significantly large packages because we haven't had meetings in a while. So, you know, I'll throw in, you know, is it because we have, it's our term of council and that's what we signed up for? Sure. But I'm not opposed to making changes to certain things if it makes sense. To me, it doesn't make sense that we move away from 2 meetings a month. I would prefer to keep it at 2 meetings a month rather than to go for 1 meeting a month. I hear a lot from the community saying we don't do enough as it is. We're not at the council table. We're not sitting here doing work. We're not, and again, not all the work gets done at this table. I completely understand that, and we get paid for other things that we're doing. We're out in the community. We're answering questions. I mean, you know, no one said this more than me. I'm getting tapped on the shoulder in the grocery store, at the mall, wherever I am at the arenas, getting tapped and being asked questions that sometimes take 5 minutes, sometimes take an hour. You know, so that's all part of the job, all part of the responsibilities. But for me, I would not be comfortable, and I could not justify to the taxpayer that I would be sitting here for only 1 meeting a month. That's my opinion. Council will decide as a whole, and you know, on what that is. That's what democracy is. But those are my opinions.
Thank you, Councillor. Follow-up, Councillor Deakin?
Appreciating all of the comments. Thanks to Councillor Lorrain as well as Councillor Armstrong's comments, which really summed up the what are we here for, what are we trying to do, and there was some disagreement at this table, I think, from my perspective in particular around the how do we do this well, how do we represent our residents well, and I just want to pick up on one more thing and with a question to administration, and that is, I mentioned ways that I would like to see expanded engagement, you know, the town halls, the simplifying the ways and making more accessible and well-known the ways that residents can submit questions and comments to their council at any time. I'd like to understand from the administrations if it's status quo, I want to make sure that it's not status quo. In fact, I want to make sure that we actually are building. And I'd just like us to understand, you know, we're investing our tax dollars in our local government as well. And do we have, are there any risks that we're posing in just adding versus trying to find efficiencies? Or could we perhaps give direction to administration to find efficiencies in other ways for meeting processes and procedures? Because balance is very important to me, and I want us to go into the direction of even more engagement in public forums with residents, but I don't want tonight's decision to be putting unreasonable and unfeasible strain on the administration to move forward with those other public engagement pieces.
Thank you. And just to clarify, Councillor Deakin, just to ensure that I understand and staff understand what you're telling us, and I agree with you, is that you like those other initiatives that were in there in terms of open house and so on, but adding those to ensure that adding those and keeping status quo we're still moving in that direction to we're not, because we're saying status quo here, saying no to the other ones, because we are very interested in those other ones. And then once we do those other ones, then it's a question of understanding the balance, the impact on staff, council, and so on, correct? Mr. Godin, does that resonate, or does that make sense?
Well, I think it was sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, so if it was a question, I can answer that. Without adjusting the frequency, it would be very difficult to add those additional items. We can always evaluate and look at how it can be done, but we've just gone through the budget exercise, and I can assure council that finding efficiencies is something we do on a regular basis, and we've still had to add some positions, some FTEs in the budget because we are stretched thin, and we haven't. I think we've achieved, or we've been able to not add all of the ones that we maybe initially thought because we found certain efficiencies. What we're presenting here, like I said, it's not a reduction of volume. It's really a different way of doing things, which we think would be more efficient. So if the directive is just to go to find how to be more efficient, to be able to introduce those other things, I'm not sure where to start and how we achieve that.
Well, I would just maybe ask that we take some time to look at that and really consider it, because I understand that the efficiency piece and just adding, say, an open house all of a sudden once a month or something would have a major impact on staff, and I don't know that that's what council is looking for. But is there a way to incorporate something like that? And so maybe that ends up being, once every or twice a year, for example, rather than that month having a regular council meeting, then it's an open house, and maybe we conduct a bit of business beforehand, but then it's an open house. And so perhaps there's ways to think outside the box and still manage to bring in those initiatives without impacting the frequency. And so how do we do it? I don't have an answer right now, but I think what Councillor Deakin is saying is that we don't want to lose those initiatives because we want to stay status quo. And so to try to trouver un juste milieu en quelque part pour essayer d'adresser ça. Puis j'ai pas la réponse, je sais pas si c'est possible, puis qu'est-ce que ça va demander, but maybe some brainstorming around it to happen. Monsieur Godin?
Right, merci, Mr. Mayor. What I would say, I think, is for the procedural bylaw piece, if we don't want to move forward with this, we can stay status quo on that piece. We will have a public engagement policy coming forward in the next months where those other discussions can be held. Just if we're adding, we'll have to either add resources or modify elsewhere.
That's
And we
correct.
can handle- and
So
can
we
handle
may end up
discussions.
coming back to the procedural bylaw and saying that 2 meetings a year will include an open house, for example. So rather than having something like that, or whatever that looks like. Councillor Deakin?
This brings me back to some of my earlier comments about not having the policy and the action plan and the toolkit quite yet, is that it has me now thinking about committees and, all of these other parts that are part of the recommendations that came through in the report that council has not seen or addressed yet. So I do think that there's been value in the discussion tonight and seeing some of those initial thoughts from administration, but doubling down on the reality that we need a full picture to understand and to kind of almost see a map of how this happens and in tandem. That's just my final comment. Thank you.
Those are wise words. Thank you. Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, just a couple things. One is, it was mentioned that it's not, the idea isn't about reducing the workload for administration. I appreciate that, but yet there is that element too, and maybe just to touch on what Councillor Deakin said, there are some other pieces to the engagement strategy. We've talked about committees as well. I certainly have some ideas that I'm going to bring back to council shortly about opportunities there to gain efficiencies. Something maybe that could be considered, if just to take back to administration, is that there was talk some time back too about some municipalities and cities, looking at what they're doing and moving their council sessions to daytime hours. I appreciate, at one point, having been on 3 committees at the same time as being a councillor, that I had a lot of staff with me as well. Those were all evening meetings, and on top of the council evening meetings, and the effect of that, impact of that on families, and getting home for supper or not getting home for supper. And I understand with councillors, though, that some have daytime jobs. But I think, anyway, I'll just leave it at that, but I think that should also be considered in the mix. What the chances of if there are 2 council meetings a month, that one would be in the early afternoon as opposed to the 6 o'clock start time, and what kind of efficiencies or opportunities that might present for administration. Again, I appreciate that the idea is maybe we're not trying to find ways to save time or reduce workload, but this might be a technique to take some stress and strain off nevertheless. Having a lot of staff through the evening and then having them all back for council meetings again through the evening. And I've had residents say to me at times, you're holding the meetings at 6 o'clock, knowing full well that that's when I'm getting home from work and trying to feed my families and get them off to hockey. So a bit of sarcasm there as to the start time, suggesting that if it was at 7 or at 4, it might be better. But I just leave that there for consideration as well, that because it was talked about a year ago that what if we were to move to an earlier start time, and what efficiencies or opportunities that might create.
Thank you, Councillor. So we've been sitting for 2.5 hours, and with respect to the 2 residents that are here, I'll go through all the way to question period, and then we'll take a quick break before we move forward, if that's okay with everyone. So item 12, reports from investigator, I closed that too fast. Any last comments from members of council? Sorry, Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Monsieur. Well, I just wanted to confirm, do you want to remove this from the section?
Well, I think regardless, there's a bylaw that's coming, right? No, not today, I understand that, but this is just to receive the comments and a bylaw forthcoming.
Right, but if we're not moving forward with the changes, we won't bring.
So there is no.
There won't be any broad.
Okay, so we'll remove this item then. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a piece on the consent items there. I guess. Yeah, we'll remove it. We'll deal with that then. Okay, removing item K then as well. So I and K so far, Maryse? Oui, merci. OK, c'est bon, Monsieur Godin? On continue alors, numéro 12, rapport d'un investigateur de l'Ombudsman, on n'en a pas. Numéro 13, pardon, avis de motion. So we have a notice of motion that's being considered at this evening's meeting. There will be no discussion on this today. And I'll start with reading it. C'est ça? Okay. Alors, so this notice of motion is being brought forward by Councillor Marc Lalonde, rent control measures, and it was seconded by Councillor Lisa Deacon. Whereas Council understands that the need for affordable rental housing not only applies to new residential construction, but also to the protection of existing affordable rental units, and whereas the removal of rent control in 2018 on the new residential rental units opened the door to unjustified year-over-year rent increases, resulting in added hardship to working class and low-income residents struggling to cope with unpredictable rental costs and loss of housing security. And whereas the loss of rent control has caused a higher number of people across Ontario to be forced out of their rental units due to their inability to afford unjustified rent increases, and whereas unlimited rent increases and a move towards a monthly rather than a yearly rental agreements can be used as a tactic by landlords acting in bad faith to remove existing tenants and replace them with new tenants at increased rental rates. And whereas providing housing stability, maintaining affordable housing stock, and protecting renters from unjustified rent increases is of the utmost importance to this council. And whereas council recognizes that fair, responsible landlords are essential to the Township of Russell's commitment to promote affordable housing for working class and low income residents, now therefore be it resolved that council of the Township of Russell requests the Province of Ontario to reintroduce rent control measures that protect against excessive and unfair rent increases for rental units occupied for residential purposes while maintaining the ability of responsible landlords to operate a viable and sustainable business, and that the Clerk of the Township of Russell forward this resolution to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Liberal MP Giovanna Mingarelli, Conservative MPP Stéphane Sarrazin, and other municipalities within the United Counties of Prescott-Russell for their consideration and endorsement. Thank you very much. And we move to item number 14, question period on meeting of the day. So questions must be in relation to today's meeting. Before asking any questions, make sure you fill in your name and address. If you wish to receive a response from a member of council or staff, please leave a phone number or email. State only your name before asking the question, and disclaimer: by asking questions during the council meeting, you are consenting to be part of a live broadcast and of the official public recording of the proceedings. The floor is yours.
Julian Hunt. I'd just like some clarification on the website redesign piece you mentioned during the budget discussions. Was that what it was for, a website redesign?
That's correct, Monsieur Dagenet.
Yes?
That's for, yeah, so we're proceeding with the redesign of the website.
So that was $85,000? Is that what you mentioned?
The amount, I had a mistake on what was being pulled out of it, so that's still there, and I believe it was 85,000.
Yes, that's the budget, and we went through an RFP for that.
So the RFP's already been done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, does redesign imply also the implementation of that design, or is it just for the design itself?
Monsieur Dagenet?
It's a new website. We need to do a new website.
Okay, so it's for both,
They're
it's for
gonna
the
host
design
it.
and the implementation?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Okay, at this point, let's take a pause for the cause. It's 8:35. Let's come back at 8:45, if that's okay with everyone. Thank you. All right, we're back. Moving to item 15, resolution. Motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. I need a mover seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Questions, comments? We are removing, I believe, items I and K. C'est ça, oui? Okay. So proposed amendment to remove items I and K. That's moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote. All in favor to remove those items, and that's passed. So now call for the vote for all items listed under item 11 as amended. All in favor? And passed. Anyone notice I did that without making a mistake so far?
Good job.
Okay. All right, moving to, maybe I spoke too soon. Moving to item I. Une petite seconde, je retrouve mes choses. Okay, Ember Water Tower. The council acknowledge receipt of verbal report and give direction to proceed on the procurement process. And that's moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. It's on the table. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Lauren.
Just asking what the procurement process that we're given direction to do would be.
Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So
Monsieur Bourgon.
we did find a section in our purchasing policy. So basically, we'll be asking to add the section at the end of the proposed resolution. So we could add as per section 22A for special circumstances of bylaw 2021-094.
So should we list item 4? That's 4, right?
And
IV?
that's the text that's on the screen.
That would be part of the resolution. C'est bien ça, Monsieur Bourgon?
We would just add the line as per section.
And that would be presented in brackets. Questions, comments on the amendment? Councillor Deacon?
So this would be added to tonight's, or this would be added to the next meeting?
No, so it would be added to item I. The council acknowledges receipt of verbal report and gives direction to proceed with the procurement process as outlined in schedule, as per section 22A, 4 section special circumstance of bylaw 2021-094.
It seems to me that there's a piece missing here, though, because we're not actually saying what the procedure is. It's saying, I acknowledge administration is telling us that this is a special circumstance, that there is an urgency, but this addition is not telling me what that actually means in terms of how the procurement policy will or will not be followed. This is a circumstance that's being described to me.
Yeah, so, sorry,
Mr.
true, Mr.
Bourgon?
Mayor, so we're not using the proper tender process highline in our policy. So we're
Explain.
we will be inviting 2 companies. They'll be able to come and do the site visit immediately, and they'll have the opportunity to submit a bid on the proposed scope of work. So with going with that specific time frame, they have a shorter time to provide us with their pricing. If we follow the proper tender process, we won't be able to make in December, so we're delaying the award of contract, which means we're delaying to put the tower back online, which is going to push us further at the end of the spring, maybe even the summer, which means nobody can fill their pool in that period of time. So that's why we're asking council to use that section of the policy to fast track the procurement process.
So I think what you're saying, Monsieur Bourgon, if I understand correctly, is that we acknowledge receipt of this verbal report and give direction to proceed with the procurement process, considering the special circumstance urgency, correct?
That's correct. And part of our report on December 8th, we'll highlight to council which company were invited, the time of the
All the
site
details.
visit, how many days were allowed to give their submission.
Okay, Councillor Deacon, does that answer your question?
It seems, I would like to see more specificity in the resolution that we're being asked to approve tonight, like the details that were provided by administration. It seems like we're waiving, like otherwise the resolution will read as if we're waiving, but not saying exactly what we're waiving and what we're maintaining or requiring in terms of process, given the circumstance.
Thank you.
Is it
Ms.
possible for that to be included in the resolution? I realize we're speaking on the spot here.
Yeah, no problem. It's part of the process, and I appreciate you you asking the questions, and those are fair questions. Mr. Godet?
Merci, Monsieur Maire, and thank you for the question, Councillor Deacon. So I'll just give more context on that section of the procurement policy and then maybe suggest some other wording. So what comes before that, so this is section 4, but what section 22A is a list of circumstances that
Exceptions.
what it says is sole source purchases are permitted under the following circumstances. And then clause 4 is those special circumstances for urgency. So that's, when we're referring to the policy, that's what is being said here. To your point about the resolution being more specific, maybe we could maybe add, when we're saying give direction to proceed with the procurement process, I would suggest maybe we add by invitation, because that's what we're suggesting to do, is rather than going in an open tender, is to invite 2 specific bidders to bid on the project. So maybe if we add by invitation and then as per section, I don't know if that would address your concerns.
Councillor Deacon?
Councillor Armstrong has a really good idea, I can tell.
Councillor Armstrong?
Can I just amend the
Current
resolution by adding at the end, by inviting bids from 2 companies only in accordance with section 22A for special circumstances of bylaw 2021-094.
I have a proposed amendment on the table. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Well, you're proposing it.
Mhm.
So seconder, Councillor Lauren. Questions and comments on the amendment? Maryse?
read it again.
Okay. Continuing on the existing sentence, comma, by inviting bids from 2 companies only in accordance with section 22A IV4, special circumstances of bylaw 2021-094. So we know that they're only going to ask for 2 companies. They know they can do it in accordance with this, which is, could not be obtained in time using open tendering or selective tendering. That implies that it's a truncated time period.
So Maryse? Madame Roy? Okay, so we had an amendment. We voted on the amendment. We did vote on the amendment?
We did vote on the amendment.
What's that?
We did.
Yes. No, we,
No, we didn't vote on anything.
We voted on
Okay.
we voted to accept the amendment. Now we have to vote on
Yes.
the actual
amended
motion itself.
version. Yeah,
The
I know,
amended
but-
version, yes.
but that's my point. So
Okay.
call for the vote on the as amended version. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. Okay, that's one. Item K, thank you for bringing that up. Item K. All right. The council received the chart dated October 27, 2025, with the proposed amendments to council procedural bylaw 2021-127, and authorized the clerk to bring forward an amending bylaw for consideration at the next regular council meeting on November 24th, 2025. Mover and seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Questions, comments, or amendments? Councillor Lauren.
I think we should either vote on it now or defer it till January after we hear the other policy come up and let council decide at that point how to proceed. I think you already know where I stand on it, but if there are others that still want to debate it at a later date based on that public engagement information that's going to come in December the 8th, then I'd be more than happy to defer it and have a further discussion in January, but I'm open to voting on it tonight too.
So there's a proposal to defer. There is an item on there around consent items that could come back without the other one. So, Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. If council wants to debate it again in January, I would suggest to simply defer it to January, like Councillor Lauren is suggesting, because that section on consent items, I agree, we could pass only that one without passing the others. At the same time, there's no rush to pass it.
Exactly.
We still are already putting some stuff in the consent items that aren't on that list, and I don't think it's not contravening the policy, it's just not specified.
Okay, so we have a proposal to defer this item. Do I have a seconder to defer? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote to defer the item. All in favor? And passed. Thank you very much. All right, moving forward. Item 17, c'est bien ça?
16.
16. Pardon, oui, c'est important. Hein? Sur le 16, il n'y a rien à changer, hein? No. Okay, motion to, that council approve bylaws 2025-130 to 2025-138 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. That's moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. Item 17, new business reports, we have none. Item 18, other business, and so 18A, rural intersection reports. When is it coming to council? And again, there was an incident that happened again at that dam intersection, and so council would like to get an update when the study is coming on rural intersections, so we can move ahead and make a decision on this. Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So our plan is to bring the report to council on December 8th. In terms of where the four-way stop is warrant or not. The portion that's not completed yet is if council decide to implement other measures other than a four-way stop, those warrant were not established yet. But I'll certainly bring all the information that we have available at this time on December 8th.
Okay, so on December 8th, there will be so we'll be told what we are required to do if we're meeting the requirements. Outside of that, are we going to be given some potential options if we do decide to move, or you're going to be relying on council to figure those items out themselves? I'm just for clarity's sake.
Through Mr. Mayor, so I'll be bringing what's warrant or not as per the Ontario regulation. The other means of potential improvement or things that can be added, that won't be ready for December 8th. That will come at a later date.
Councillor Lauren?
Do we have an idea of what other measures are available at any intersection at any time?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes. We want to establish some guidelines or some trigger or benchmark for those items, for those improvement possibilities.
Thank you.
Okay, so December 8th, we will receive that here, and from there we can move forward. I would tell council, like at the same token, if you're able to look at options, and if there are certain intersections that where maybe there is no requirement, but those are intersections that have been causing some challenges. It may be worth having a plan of action so that we can move as quickly as possible towards addressing those. So if at all possible, Monsieur Bourgon, if you can have in your back pocket some options, I know we're asking a lot here, but you know where this report is going, presumably, and so understanding where we've had some challenges and kind of where the council sits right now on some of those intersections, it would be really appreciated if we have perhaps some additional options if the report shows that nothing is required.
So I could have a list of measures, but again, I won't have any benchmark, where I won't be in a position to recommend council.
That's fair.
Which mean should be placed where.
That's fair. Okay. Anything to add on this, members of council? Thank you very much for the update, Monsieur Bourgon. I appreciate it. Moving to item 20, so 19 was done before, so moving to item 20, announcements. So a little bit of a new process that we're starting as of this evening is, and this was as part of the process to add another layer of transparency for residents. So you'll notice that we are putting public meeting notices as part of our announcements. So I'm going to read the couple of upcoming ones. So notice of public meeting, proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw. Please find below notices pertaining to the Planning Advisory Committee meetings that will take place on November 17th, 2025. So Block 90 and 91 in Subdivision Southwest Park on Plan 50M 388 in Russell. Item number 2 is Peacock Drive in Russell within Southwest Park Subdivision. And part of Lot 21, Concession 5 in Vars. And under item B, or announcement B if you want, take notice that the Township of Russell will hold a public meeting on November 26, 2025 at 6 p.m. in Gaston Patnaud Hall located here on 717 Notre-Dame Street in Embrun in order to consider a proper building permit fee bylaw under Section 7 of the Building Code Act 1. Or Code Act, sorry. 18C, so other announcements. So just a reminder, everyone, Remembrance Day is tomorrow. We were very happy, and I mentioned this at the beginning of our meeting, that we had students from La Croisée, from Castor in l'École Secondaire, as well as some daycare come by and put some of these pictures up. And we had a chance to chat with them and discuss the importance of Remembrance Day. This was brought forward by Le Club Richelieu in support and cooperation with Monsieur Louis Savoie and the team here at Township. So very much appreciated in doing this. So tomorrow during the service, there will be a service here at 3 o'clock. During the service, community members will be able to come in and see these. Monsieur Savoie, is that correct? Yeah, so they'll be here for viewing by the members that are coming to the ceremony tomorrow. Speaking of the ceremony tomorrow, there is our official ceremony. Will be at 11 o'clock in Russell by the Legion. I am told that our ceremony here at 3 o'clock, we will have the presence of MP Mingarelli and MPP Sarrazin that will be here for the 3 o'clock. They're busy for the other ones. We also have another service at in Limoges that I believe Councillor Deacon and Councillor Armstrong are attending, and that's at for 11 o'clock as well. And so that's the activities for Remembrance Day. A few more items that I wanted to talk to. We had the opportunity, and Madame Guittard, thank you very much for that, last week to tour the rec complex site. It was a great opportunity for us to kind of see firsthand where we're at, how things are moving forward and taking shape. I, for one, was very pleased with with where we're at. I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of lighting, certainly within the center corridor, and the beauty of that courtyard. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next update, which will probably come after the winter. We'll hopefully get a chance to go for another walkabout in the winter. So joining us were Councillor Deacon and Councillor Lauren as well. And I know that Councillor Lauren had some great questions pertaining to the design of the rinks and making sure that that the different hockey associations will have their logos and so on. So some great points and questions that were raised, and appreciated the time to get that organized. The other couple of points to mention, on November 6th, I had the opportunity of attending the Russell Township Fire Services Appreciation Evening. Chief, thank you so much for all the work, and chef adjoint, c'est ça? Chef adjoint Courville, merci beaucoup pour tout le beau travail qui a été fait pour organiser ça. The organization of it, it was very well attended. It was great to see all the volunteers there, all our volunteer firefighters there, get a chance to interact with them and have them recognized for their time, for the amount of time they put in the training. This is my second one that I attend, and what impacts me every time is not only all the work that when they go to the calls, but it's the amount of training that's required to be prepared to go to the calls. And so you do a great job in recognizing all the hours that are put in, all the training to be ready for those emergency services. So thank you very much for doing that, and the recognition of all the years of service and so on. So that was fantastic, and I'm glad we're able to do that, and I was glad that Mr. Gonnet and myself got a chance to participate. Moving on November 5th, I also had the great opportunity of, with Councillor Deacon and Conseiller Lalonde, to attend the shoveling ground celebration with Maison Interlude for their new project on Saint-Augustin. It's exciting to see this move forward. This is a project that was originally initiated by our former mayor's idea of that piece of land. And it's extremely appropriate. The location is so important because of its proximity to schools and proximity to a grocery store. So it is really an ideal place. And it's too bad that we have to have these type of facilities. It would be great to live in a world where we didn't need them, but we do need them. And I'm very, very happy and proud that Russell Township is developing or working with Maison Interlude, supporting Maison Interlude to make sure that they have one. Moving one other item, sorry, and I'll stop after, but on the also last week or the week before, I had the opportunity of attending the Battle Shield shoveling ground in their expansion, and so Battle Shield is worth mentioning. Not only do they support Township, through the past have supported Township with equipment for the fire department for trucks. That's their role and their job. But Monsieur Luc Thibault is born and raised here in Embrun. He started the company in his garage and has grown and has been continuously growing. So it's a locally grown success story, and it's exciting to see that. And one of the things that marries this groundbreaking and the recognition evening is that Monsieur Thibault is also a longtime firefighter, volunteer with the fire service. I believe celebrated 10 years with us, correct, Chief? And so not only is he a success story in terms of being an entrepreneur, he's also a volunteer and gives back to our community through his work there. So I'll stop at that, but any other announcements? Councillor Lauren.
Yeah, I don't know how many people were actually watching yesterday afternoon around 3:15, but the Kin Club's Catch the Ace, which is an amazing charitable event going on and has swept across not just our community, but I think all of Eastern Ontario. When you look at how many people are actually buying tickets at record numbers, the Ace was not found again yesterday, and only 2 cards remain, numbers 42 and 45. So next week, the jackpot is listed at approximately $2.2 million for the winner if the ace is caught. Last week's winner actually brought home $112,000, almost $113,000 just for being the weekly winner. So even if you lose, I think you still win. It's an amazing thing. I think already amount raised for charities in this lottery alone is $2.9 million already. So a lot of the organizations that were looking at getting money for this event it's exceeded expectations. It's got to be one of the largest ones that has ever been given out in this area that I've ever heard of from a local charitable type event. And it couldn't have gone any longer. Like it's gone right down to the wire, the last two. So if I have one word of advice is get your tickets as quickly as possible, get them in there, as many as you can, and hopefully it's someone from Russell Township that wins the jackpot, because there's been a lot of outliers that are buying tickets, Cornwall, and the last one was from Finch. So let's get a local person to win this event. But whoever wins, it'll be awesome. But just thought I'd bring it up because it's sweeping the area right now. So
Absolutely, and for the record, I've been choosing 45 for the last, well, since halfway through the lottery when I started buying tickets. I'm sure that's the one, but you still have to get selected. Having said that, you did say something, Councillor Lauren, that I want to emphasize. You said if you lose, you still win. And that's very true, because our community is winning, and all the partnerships, all the money raised, even if you don't win, we're winning. As a community, this lottery is fantastic. So great point on bringing that up. You had a follow-up there?
yeah, can I ask for an announcement from staff on one thing rather than give an announcement?
Sure.
I don't know, Monsieur Bogon, if you'd have an answer, but the lights at Edie and Castor, do we have an updated date of when they might be working?
Mr. Bogo?
Unfortunately, I don't. Not in the updated timeframe.
Thank you.
It is coming, I think, by the end of November, I was told, ballpark, but that the hydro piece, the intersection may be fully open, but the hydro piece is not 100% in county's control. So that's the reality. So it may be open as a stop until the lights are activated. Anything else, members of council? Thank you very much. Strategic discussion, item 21, we have none. Item 22, closed session. So pursuant to sections 239, 3, and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, motion to move into closed meeting at the hour of 9:12 p.m. to address matters pertaining to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider matters relating to 1. Emblem Water Tower verbal report, S2E litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and 2, closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated October 27th, 2025. So I need a mover. Moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Call for the vote to go into closed. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. We are moving into closed session.